Chapter 287. Thank you, big brother. Shiro Amiya said sincerely. Wuming knew that he had to accept this gratitude no matter what. What are you talking about? You're my brother. Even if you're my sworn brother, there's no need to say thank you between us. Wuming didn't look back. Wuming waved his hand and put the culture tank on the ground. Sakura, go make something delicious for Shiro. Now Shiro's body needs to be nourished. It's best if it's meat. I remember there's still a lot of meat in the freezer. The freezer's location hasn't changed. Shiro knows where it is. Wuming turned around and said to Sakura Madu, who was supporting Shiro Amiya. Yes, I understand. Oni-sama, then I'll leave with senpai first. Just as Sakura Madu was about to support Shiro Amiya to leave, Wuming said. Don't forget to leave your rank card behind. I didn't help you adjust your rank card. If your life is in danger because you used your rank card too much, I'm afraid Scholar will fight me to the death. Wuming teased at the end. Sakura Madu blushed. What? Big brother, don't drag me into this. Shiro Amiya smiled helplessly. Then, I'll leave it to you, Oni-sama. Sakura Madu took out a card. On it was a picture of a man wearing a beast horn mask, holding a big sword, pretending to be crazy. This was Sakura Madu's Berserker card. The power inside was the Berserk Lancelot. Okay, that's enough. You guys can go now. Wuming took the card and said casually. Berserk Lancelot? The guy known as the Knight of the Lake will also degenerate into a berserker. How ironic. Wuming looked at the class card in his hand and smiled uninterestedly. After that, Wuming began to prepare for the purification of the class cards. The class cards that Ainsworth had made all had the negative ability to corrode one's heart and body. Because Shiro Amiya was using the power of his future self, he was almost immune to the psychological damage, but he couldn't avoid the physical damage. That was because the cards had been soaked in the black mud during the manufacturing process. Wuming carefully delved into it and discovered that the interior of the card had the scent of the black mud. Combined with the fact that a job-grade card could erode a person's body and mind, this job-grade card, including the one Wuming had given to Ilya and the others, as well as the one in Blackie's body, had all been created by the black mud. However, after taking out Wuming and young Gil, as well as the 7 class cards that had been brought to the world of Ilya, they had all been baptized by the Holy Grail known as Mayu, purifying all of these class cards, and the negative effects that corroded one's heart and body had all disappeared. That was what Wuming was doing now. Eliminate all the negative effects that corrode the user's body inside the card. Although Wuming was not the Holy Grail, in terms of spiritual purification, Wuming's noble phantasm, the Nameless Spellbook, had a lot of spells in this area. Although the two are somewhat different, it should work. Wuming said to himself. In the past, what if, noble and powerful, wise and kind, I will become a double miracle and lead the world to the dawn. Wuming directly activated the power of double authority. In this way, the purification of the negative effects of the class cards should be foolproof. After all, it was the power of a god, and a mere class card couldn't compete with it at all. Wuming placed the Nameless Spellbook on the table and opened it casually. Wuming took the class card and placed the class card on the Nameless Spellbook. The class card automatically floated above the Nameless Spellbook. He didn't even need to chant an incantation. The Nameless Spellbook automatically activated with Wuming's thoughts, and began to purify the class cards. As expected, it's because of the black mud. Wuming felt the analysis of the class card and frowned. Fortunately, I'm not the same as I used to be after returning to the root. Wuming smirked. After that, Wuming injected an unknown power into the Nameless Spellbook. BZZT. Like an ordinary object touching sulfuric acid, the class card made a sizzling sound. Then, a small black gas floated out of the class card and disappeared into nothingness. Done. Wuming grabbed the class card. Excessive amounts of ice would seal the flames in the body and extinguish them. However, for the endless flames, a little bit of ice was nothing. It would melt, evaporate, and turn into nothingness. Julian must have realized my return, Wuming said thoughtfully. I have to hurry. With the sound of the door closing, Wuming left the room. Winterwood City, Big Hollow, Ainsworth Castle. A sloppy middle-aged man with messy hair and thin clothes stood at the highest point of the castle, looking at the scenery in the distance. If one looked closely, one would find that the man's eyes were filled with fanaticism and darkness. Thud. This was the sound of a person half kneeling on the ground. The man didn't turn his head and spoke directly. It seems like you've lost completely, Angelica, Beatrice. The man said with a deep feeling. However, no matter how one listened, one could tell that the owner of the voice was not in a good mood. I'm sorry, Master Darius, we've failed, Angelica said calmly. She was not upset or worried about the failure of the mission. That was right. These two people were Angelica and Beatrice, who Wuming thought had no chance of surviving. Although both of them survived Wuming's attack, Beatrice was worried about whether she could survive the attack of Master Ainsworth. Beatrice, who was beside Angelica, didn't dare to speak. Beatrice was just like Angelica, half kneeling on the ground, but she didn't say a word. After all, Beatrice was not a pure puppet. She accepted the rank card to become Ainsworth's combat power voluntarily. Because of the effect of Hercules' noble phantasm, Beatrice only fell into a state of suspended animation, so she was not brainwashed by Darius. He did not want those who died to be deprived of emotions and placed on puppets. After all, the other party really volunteered to help him, so there was no need to spend energy to convert them. Mama, I can't blame you. I didn't expect Hyunryong to really resurrect beside our princess. Darius said with joy. The evil dragon that kidnapped the princess, how can a mere soldier bring the princess back? This needs to be done by a brave prince. What do you think? Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Looking at Darius, who was laughing like a lunatic, Angelica and Beatrice did not speak anymore. One felt that there was no need to speak, and the other was too scared to speak. For a moment, Darius stopped laughing, then said calmly to Angelica. Inform those puppets that the enemy is coming. Yes, Master Darius. Chapter 288. On the same day, Wuming helped Meiyu and Ilya learn how to use Dream Summon, install. He also guided Xiao He while he was at it. Originally, this task should have been given to Shiro Amiya. However, Sakura Madu was worried that Shiro Amiya wouldn't be able to get out of bed. Even the food was personally delivered by Sakura Madu to Shiro Amiya's room. According to Wuming's deduction, he found out that Shiro Amiya was also being fed by Sakura Madu. After all, Wuming could be considered as half a mentor to Shiro Amiya. Although he couldn't use the moves of his disciple, he could still give some pointers to Xiao He. Subsequently, Xiao He successfully developed a skill that could be considered a new ability, which made Xiao He very excited. After that, Wuming made glutinous rice balls for the three of them, making 3 smiling faces and 3 different types of laughter accompany Wuming. After that, Wuming took some free time to find Rin Enbin and Livia. Wuming brought them to the room in the center of the Shuasuki residence and folded the space to reveal the control room. After seeing all this, the people who were originally interested in the control room, including Rin Enbin and Livia, were all shocked. Although this isn't a secret, the control room is also the core of my magic workshop. You two must be obedient and don't cause any trouble. This was Wuming's advice to Rin Enbin and Livia, whose eyes were shining when they saw the control room. Okay. Of course, Wuming wouldn't easily believe that the two wouldn't drop the ball at a critical moment. Therefore, Wuming left Kalis behind as an assistant to Rin Enbin and Livia. In addition to supervising Rin Enbin and Livia, Kalis had another important task, which was to assist the two in the construction of the magic workshop. After all, this was Kenzaki's shrine. Even if Wuming simplified it to modern technology, the two of them wouldn't be able to learn how to use it in a single day. That night, after dinner, everyone gathered in the conference room again. As usual, Wuming sat at the head of the table, while the others sat on either side of him. Young Gil sat in the middle. Everyone, go to sleep later and conserve your strength. Angelica and Beatrice did not come back. Ainsworth must be able to infer that I am back. Maybe the other party will attack directly regardless of the safety of the Winterwood citizens. Directly. Directly launch an attack. Isn't magic supposed to be hidden and not be known to ordinary people? Will Ainsworth really break this rule? Ilya had been in the magic world for a long time, so she already understood a lot of these rules. Although this world had experienced the experience of almost being destroyed, with the help of Zelik, this world successfully escaped from destruction. Even so, the world's population had decreased to a certain extent, and even now, Winterwood City had not fully recovered to its former prosperity. But the people were not afraid, it was just that the population base had decreased, and they still continued to live. Ainsworth's goal is the Holy Grail. Let's not talk about whether they know that May came back with me. With Ainsworth's idea, as long as they get rid of me, no one can stop them from getting the Holy Grail. Wyrm explained. When this world was gradually approaching destruction, the magicians from all over the world were the first victims. As the saying goes, if the sky falls, the tall man will hold it up. After the magicians lost a lot of their lives, Zelik spent a lot of effort to resolve the crisis of this world. As for what the crisis was, Wyrm didn't know, nor was he interested in knowing. He only knew that because of the decrease in magicians, the Ainsworth family on the other side of the world had become the local tyrant. This was also the reason why the large pit on the side of Winterwood City had not been repaired for 5 years. I can only say that we can't eliminate the possibility of an attack at night. After all, I have already discovered that they are monitoring this place. Wyrm said calmly. Let's leave it at that for the time being. Everyone, go to sleep. If nothing unexpected happens, we will attack Ainsworth tomorrow morning. After Wyrm finished speaking, everyone looked at each other and nodded. Night fell, and Wyrm looked in the direction of Ainsworth. With a golden light, young Gil appeared beside Wyrm. Why are you here? Good boy, you still need to sleep. Wyrm looked at young Gil casually. Ha ha ha, teacher is so gentle. Wyrm's words made young Gil laugh. I'm actually here to tell you that I sensed the aura of my upper body. As soon as young Gil said that, Wyrm's body trembled, but he reacted quickly. Both of them came back alive. They are so lucky. Wyrm squinted his eyes and looked at young Gil. Then, I'll give you your upper body. How about that? Young Jill, on the other hand, smiled gently. Teacher, you must be joking. Although it's my lower body, it has most of my relics. Of course, I know how powerful I am. You want your lower body, right, Gil? Wyrm suddenly said. Yes, of course. Of course, I want to be complete. Young Gil said as if it was a matter of course. Now, I suddenly realized that you were the most difficult to deal with when you were young. Wyrm suddenly sighed. He relaxed his aura that was always ready. As if he was on vacation, Wyrm lay on the roof. After becoming an adult, Gilgamesh was extremely arrogant and complacent. Before becoming an adult, Gilgamesh was gentle and elegant. He always kept his cool. Compared to the guy in front of him who always had a smile and was always calm, Wyrm felt that the arrogant and complacent Gilgamesh was easier to talk to. I really hate myself after growing up. I really don't understand why I became like that. Young Gil also put down his smile and returned to his original posture. He leaned against Wyrm and sat down. Really, wouldn't it have been better if you were like this earlier? You made both of us so troublesome. Young Gil was like a real child as he casually said to Wyrm. Who told you to stare at Mayu so aggressively from the beginning, you idiot? Wyrm said as he cursed and hit young Gil's head. I can't help it. After all, my heart has always wanted to obtain the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is right in front of me. How could I give it up? After all, Wyrm did not use much strength. Young Gil only touched his head symbolically and then chatted with Wyrm. That's right. Although the two of them had a good relationship as master and disciple, they always seemed to treat each other as outsiders. That was because both of them were pretending. Then, what made you give up on Meiyu? Wuming asked young Gil in a tone that said he already knew the answer. You really have a bad taste. You clearly know the reason, yet you still ask me. Young Gil looked helplessly at Wuming. Wuming did not mind young Gil's words. He smiled and looked at the sky without saying anything. That's right. No matter what, Wuming was like Gilgamesh's adoptive father. Even if it was the Gilgamesh of the parallel world, how could Wuming not understand him? Chapter 289. As early as when Wuming and young Gil noticed that there were enemies coming to the parallel world, young Gil had already noticed that half of his body was missing. Originally, I just wanted to destroy them in another world. That way, your body wouldn't be able to come back. Wuming looked at the sky and confessed to young Gil. Of course, I know. You were there at that time. You definitely wouldn't allow me to get my body back, so I didn't ask for much. Young Gil helplessly waved his hand. But they came back alive. Isn't this what people often say about fate? That's it, I'll help you get your body back. You're not allowed to have any ideas about Meiyu and the others. Wuming glanced at young Gil. In modern terms, you're really a lolicon. Young Gil laughed heartily. That's it, don't you want the Holy Grail? I'll give you one. Suddenly, Wuming said. Huh? You don't let me have any ideas about Sister Meiyu and the others, but you want to give me the Holy Grail? So, where is the Holy Grail that you want to give me? Young Gil was puzzled. You also know that since the fall of the Uruk dynasty, I didn't die. Wuming did not directly tell young Gil where the Holy Grail was. Instead, he talked about his own experience with young Gil. I once went to a world. In that world, there was a different kind of Holy Grail war. Oh, a different kind of Holy Grail war? Young Gil showed great interest. Yes, it was a Holy Grail war with 14 servants. The black side and the red side, each had 7 servants. The black side launched a defensive battle in order to hold the Holy Grail that was already in their hands. The red side launched a siege in order to compete for the Holy Grail that was protected by the black side. Wuming continued to look at the starry sky and spoke leisurely without turning his head. First, Black's saber committed suicide, and Red's berserker was captured. Then, Black's rider rebelled with an android and became neutral. Red's saber left the main force, and Black's assassin went out of control. Together with the additional supervisor ruler and the cheating servant ruler who survived the previous Holy Grail war, they launched an unprecedented Holy Grail war. Ha ha ha, that sounds like a pretty good show. Even I want to see these clowns. Young Gil laughed with great interest. And then? Who took the Holy Grail in the end? Young Gil asked impatiently. Wuming smiled at this. Of course it's me, your teacher. Ha ha ha, I knew it. In this world, only the two of us are qualified to possess the Holy Grail. Those clowns are really overestimating themselves. Young Gil wiped the tears from his laughter and looked at Wuming apologetically. Sorry, teacher, it's really funny. So, do you mean to give me the Holy Grail of the Holy Grail War? I originally thought so, but... Wuming said slowly. But? I regret it, my disciple. As if he was playing with young Gil, Wuming said happily. Is that so? It's similar to what I guessed, but it doesn't matter. Young Gil, who originally had a desire for the Holy Grail, now seemed to have entered sage mode. Young Gil also lay down next to Wuming. The Holy Grail is just a desire. I'm now interested in the Holy Grail war you mentioned. When I get back my real body, I'll go to the parallel world to try my luck and see if I can encounter it. After all, there are parallel worlds where the 14 Nights War happened. Even if you're my teacher, I won't accept your charity, young Gil said with a domineering tone. That's right, in young Gil's view, the so-called cooperation now was just young Gil's one-sided weakness. Even if he got back his real body and recovered all his strength, Gilgamesh and Hyunryong could still fight to a draw. In this way, the Holy Grail was charity. You really haven't changed, Gil. Wuming touched young Gil's head and said with some surprise. What do you mean haven't changed? This king has never changed, okay. Young Gil slapped Wuming's hand away in disdain. Do you think Ainsworth will come tonight? Wuming suddenly asked. Ha, isn't that obvious? Young Gil said with some disdain. The clowns are always the first to appear, teacher. Wuming and young Gil sat up and looked at the street not far from the Shuoyu residence. A black figure flashed from there. Assassin, it seems that the other party can't wait. It seems that this is the other party's vanguard. Wuming raised his arm and slid it gently, and a screen appeared in front of Wuming. On the screen, the assassin in a black robe and a skull mask was constantly moving toward here. Vanguard? I think it's cannon fodder. Young Gil smiled. Hassan, I just don't know which Hassan it is, but it doesn't matter. Wuming obviously recognized the true identity of this assassin. It couldn't be helped, Hassan was too easy to recognize. Maybe it's one of the dozen Hassans. It doesn't matter. After all, it's just a clown among clowns. Young Gil waved his hand casually. You're right. Wuming smiled as well. At that moment, Hassan, who was approaching the Shuoyu residence, suddenly stopped and dodged to the side. However, a sharp arrow that was comparable to a C-grade relic was shot at the assassin, piercing through his head. Somewhere in the Shuoyu residence, a transparent ripple appeared and disappeared. Needless to say, the arrow that was comparable to a C-grade relic was shot out from the transparent ripple. Then, the assassin collapsed on the ground. The magic in his body began to burn, and eventually, he turned into an automaton. A card fell on the ground, but strangely, the card turned into ashes along with the user and disappeared with the wind. It seems like this is a one-time use card. Has Ainsworth learned his lesson? Wuming flew up and said to young Gil. So, Gil, can you help me call everyone? Of course, teacher. Young Gil disappeared from the roof with a flash of golden particles. Wuming came to the courtyard of the Shuoyu residence and inserted one hand into the ground. Space fold, expand. After a while, Elia was woken up by Mei Yu and put on her clothes. Mei Yu, are the enemies here? Ilya rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked at Mei Yu. Yes, Sister Rin asked me to wake you up. They have all gathered. Brother Wuming found the enemy's tracks. We have to prepare in advance. After that, Mei Yu pulled Ilya toward the courtyard of the Shuoyu residence. Woo, why do they have to come at this time? Damn it, it's like sleeping. Mei Yu turned her head and comforted Ilya. Don't worry, Ilya. Brother Wuming is here. When the preparations are complete, you can go and sleep for a while. I will call you again. No. No need, Mei Yu. After all, the enemy has already attacked. It's better to be serious. Ilya waved her hand awkwardly. Speaking of which, why haven't we reached the end after walking for so long? Mei Yu had been pulling Ilya for a while. Ilya discovered that they still hadn't reached the courtyard. Could it be ghosts? Ilya's expression instantly became flustered. Unfortunately, Ilya's whimsical theory was denied. No, it's Wuming who expanded the folded space of the Shuoyu residence. That's why we haven't reached the end after walking for so long. Mei Yu shook her head. That's right, Ilya-chan. You are obviously a magical girl. How can you be afraid of ghosts? With me here, Ilya-chan can catch ghosts. Ruby's sleepy voice came out from Ilya's hair. You lazy bug. It's time to get up. Stop talking. Ilya ridiculed Ruby. Sister, come out quickly. The enemy has arrived. Sapphire, who had already come out from Mayo's hair, floated behind Ilya's head and said to Ruby, hidden in her hair. Yes, I'll come out now. Ruby said somewhat unwillingly. We're here. Mayu stopped and pushed open the door to the courtyard. This is... Chapter 290. Ilya's eyes widened when she saw the scene in the courtyard. She was speechless. The courtyard that was originally several dozen square meters had exceeded Ilya's calculations. It was so big that she couldn't even see the end. Ilya estimated that it was several thousand square meters. In this several thousand square meters courtyard, there were huge steel golems that were more than 3 meters tall. They were like an orderly army that was arranged in an orderly manner. These steel puppets were like high-tech robots. Just one of them was enough for Ilya to sense danger, not to mention the countless puppets in the courtyard. These are... Ilya didn't dare to speak. Mayu, Ilya, why are you two so late? We're just waiting for you two. Little Black waved at Ilya and Mayu who had just arrived. Ilya and Mayu hurriedly ran over. Sorry, Little Black. The space inside the house after unfolding the spatial folding is a little large. I spent some time bringing Ilya. Mayu apologized to Little Black. You don't have to apologize for such a small matter. Speaking of which, could it be that Ilya was lazing in bed and couldn't get up? That's why you're late, right? Little Black looked at Ilya with a gaze that seemed to see through everything. How is that possible? Little Black, why would I laze in bed? Ahaha. Ilya touched the back of her head and laughed. In fact, Little Black wasn't wrong. Is that so? Don't forget that we used to be one body. I basically know all your habits, Ilya, Wait a minute, that... I didn't. Little Black's words caused Ilya to stutter and become speechless. Stop fooling around, you two. Let's get down to business. Rin Enbin said to the two who were teasing and being teased. He instantly glared at Little Black. Blackie, on the other hand, turned his head away while whistling. Everyone looked at Wuming attentively. Beside Wuming, who had his eyes closed, a black teleportation door opened. Another steel golem walked out. It walked to a fixed position and stood there steadily. Then, Wuming opened his eyes. That should be enough. Then, Wuming began to chant. Under the night sky, under the brilliance of the light, form an ancient covenant with me. Here, thy body belongs to us, and we govern thy body. Gods of darkness and light, form a covenant here. As the words were uttered, the ground of the lunar manor began to change. First, it was mixed with a trace of golden light. Then, like a swamp, the ground slowly swallowed the countless iron golems standing on the ground. Only when all the steel golems had disappeared did the earth return to its original state. Were all these steel men swallowed by the earth? Ilya was a little surprised. Don't worry. Wuming walked up to Ilya and rubbed her little head. The color of the earth just now was the effect of my noble phantasm. Now, they are staying in my noble phantasm, waiting for my summons. That's right, what Wuming just used was one of the uses of his kin avatar. Originally, that avatar was originally Mecker's ability to summon locusts to devour everything. Combined with Wuming's own evolution, that ability became the ability to summon his avatar. But even if it evolved, the original ability would not disappear, and it still had the effect of summoning creatures. However, because Wuming and the locust's attributes were not compatible, there was nothing in Wuming's kin space. That required Wuming to find creatures who volunteered to be Wuming's summoned creatures to fill in the space. Compared to living creatures with flesh and blood, Wuming was more inclined to these golems without self-consciousness. That was what happened just now. Wuming summoned the strongest steel golem in Nazalik's kin space. After entering Wuming's noble phantasm, those steel golems would automatically become Wuming's summoned creatures because they were unconscious. As long as Wuming activated his dependent incarnation and didn't transmit his aura to that incarnation, then all those magic puppets would have the power to restrain the black mud. Of course, the other side would also have the power to restrain this side. In short, both sides restrained each other. Let's go, everyone, the other side has begun to move. In order to avoid affecting the city, I decided to attack the other side's base directly. Everyone nodded. Immediately afterward, Wuming, Shiro Amiya, Sakura Madu, Gil, and Bazette left Shoasuki House together. Rin and Osaka, Livia, Ilya, Meiyu, and Xiaohei stayed in Shoasuki House. Let's go, Ms. Rin, Ms. Livia, let's quickly activate the Master's Temple and go to the other side's base. Kalas suddenly appeared behind Rin and Osaka and Livia without any warning and said. Ah! Rin and Osaka and Livia were both startled. After seeing Kalas, who was of the same race as Ruby and Sapphire, they both calmed down. I know, let's go. It's improper to scare a lady. Rin and Osaka and Livia complained and went to the control room. Then let's go and prepare. Xiaohei began to move. Wait a minute, Blackie. Didn't Brother Wuming tell us to stay here obediently? Ilya looked at Blackie, wanting to say something but hesitating. Xiaohei turned his head away with a look of disdain. Should I say that you're a fool or an idiot? Big Brother did tell us to stay here as obediently as possible, but there are always accidents. We have to be prepared. If Big Brother and the others can't win for a while, we can go and help. Xiaohei turned his head and looked at Meiyu. Meiyu would agree with me. Meiyu, who didn't expect Xiaohei to ask her, was startled at first, but then she reacted. It's not impossible to prepare a little. Back then, when Wuming asked the three of them to stay in Shoasuki House, Meiyu was still a little angry. She became a magical girl. Other than to collect class cards, she also wanted to increase her power and help Wuming. Although Meiyu was a good girl, good girls also had a stubborn side. Ilya, let's go and prepare, just in case. Looking at Meiyu's determined eyes, Ilya didn't know what to do and nodded. Then, alright, let's go. If we help Big Brother later, we can ask for a reward. Xiaohei pushed the two of them and started to tempt them. Xiaohei, don't push me away, reward. Ignoring Ilya's cry of surprise, Xiaohei saw that Meiyu had fallen into his trap and immediately spoke. That's right. Don't you want Big Brother to kiss you? I missed that night very much. As he spoke, Xiaohei pretended to be seductive and tempted the two of them. That night. Meiyu was stunned. Not pure. Xiaohei, you're a girl. You have to be reserved, understand? Yes. Let's go. Chapter 291. Outside the Winterwood City pit, Wuming and his group came here. Let's stop here for the time being. Wuming waved his hand and motioned for the group to stop moving forward. So, do we need to attack directly, teacher? Young Gil put his hands behind his head and said in a relaxed and casual tone. No need, the other party has already noticed that we are here. Wuming shook his head. They are already at the door, how can the other party not notice that someone is coming? Wuming looked at the empty pit with a sarcastic expression. Still so pretentious, Ainsworth, is displacement magic really so omnipotent? Just after Wuming finished speaking, there was a slight change in the center of the big pit. Accompanied by spatial fluctuations, figures came out of the ripples one by one. Darius led Angelica, Beatrice, and a few strangers who had no consciousness in their eyes to walk out. Long time no see, Mr. Wuming. Darius greeted Wuming gently. Huh? Julian is not here. Shiro Amiya saw that Julian was not among the people who came out of the ripples and spoke subconsciously. Calm down, Shiro, I will tell you about Julian later. Wuming knew that although Julian had already broken up with Wei Gong Shiro, the things that happened between the two in the school before, and the friendship that developed between them, were all real. With Shiro Amiya's character, it was difficult for him to completely let go of Julian. After Shiro Amiya heard Wuming's words, he nodded and said nothing. He knew that this was a battlefield now. Looking back, Wuming looked at Darius. Well, long time no see, Darius. Wu Ming also responded gently with a smile. People who didn't know might think that the two were best friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. This is really fate. I remember the last time we met like this. Darius touched his chin with one hand and supported the hand that was touching his chin with the other hand as he thought carefully. You are really forgetful, Darius. The one who met me was your son, Julian Ainsworth. Yes, look at my memory, ha ha ha. In the face of Wu Ming's mistake, Darius clenched one fist and punched the other hand with a look of, I forgot to thank you for the reminder. After laughing for a moment, Darius said, then, the greetings are almost done. After Darius finished speaking, the few people behind him walked in front of Darius in unison. Their eyes were lifeless like robots. Same to you. Wu Ming narrowed his eyes. Come and see my latest card, Hyunryong-sama. Darius bowed deeply to Wu Ming like a noble. However, to be honest, it was really disgusting. Install, Dream Summon. Each of the dolls took out a class card and activated Dream Summoning. They stuck the class card on their bodies. Boom! Following their Dream Summon, a large amount of magical power erupted and impacted the surroundings. Every golem was wrapped in a huge pillar of light. The tornadoes created by the magic pillars kept blowing in the direction of Wu Ming and the others. Wu Ming and the others' clothes fluttered. Brother! Shiro Amiya took a step forward and said to Wu Ming with a serious expression. Don't worry, Shiro. Wu Ming stopped Shiro Amiya, who was a little emotional, and said. Let's see what the other party is up to. In fact, Wu Ming was worried that Darius had made a few class cards with special abilities. After all, the level of a noble phantasm was not the most important thing, but whether it could restrain a noble phantasm. Many times, a low-level noble phantasm could restrain many high-level noble phantasms. It was just like the relationship between Shakespeare and Joan of Arc in the Battle of 14 Nights that Wu Ming participated in. Shakespeare said it himself. We don't have the ability to fight. We can only pick up a pen and write to record this tragedy. She didn't know magic at all, she didn't have any skill in making props, and she could only build her own study room. She was a third-rate servant with no actual combat ability, but she was able to restrain Joan of Arc by relying on her noble phantasm. There should be a thunderous applause here. Fortunately, the aftermath of the battle between Wu Ming and Karna affected Shakespeare and Joan of Arc at that time. Otherwise, it would be terrible. However, Wu Ming estimated that with Joan of Arc's EX level of magical power, coupled with her unusually strong spirit. Having said that, faith was really a scary thing. For faith, Tianchao lived for 60 years. For faith, Joan of Arc endured the first few rounds of spiritual destruction before Wu Ming broke Shakespeare's noble phantasm. Sure enough, faith was the way to go. Ahem, let's get back to the topic. Moreover, not only noble phantasms, but even servants had restraints. If Zhou Yu and Zhuge Liang appeared in the same Holy Grail war, Zhou Yu would be restrained by Zhuge Liang. The noble phantasm was sublimated from the legends of his life, so the cause of Zhou Yu's death, which was being controlled by Zhuge Liang, would definitely accompany him. Just like Karen's death rate when encountering something related to poison, it would greatly increase. Although Wu Ming didn't think that anyone could restrain him, it was difficult to guarantee that Shiro Amiya and the others would not be restrained. Don't worry, everyone. These cards are not targeted at your noble phantasm. These are just cannon fodder used in the battle. Darius saw the concerns of Wu Ming and the others, so he didn't care about the card using puppets and spoke directly. You might as well send out your black mud servant army. A group of guys without self-awareness, there's nothing to worry about. Wu Ming laughed. Wu Ming was not underestimating the enemy. That was the truth. No matter what they are, just wash them all away. God says, humans are sinful. God says, humans need to be purified. So, send the monstrous flood to my body. In the name of the Supreme King, I will grant equal relief. As the spirit of speech finished speaking, the sky above Darius and the others seemed to be torn apart, and a hole was broken in space. Countless streams of water gushed out from this gap. However, when it was about to touch Darius and the others, a large purple magic array appeared and caught the water. Then, a purple virtual frame gap appeared above Wuming and the others. The water that Wuming summoned was used by Darius in turn, directly replacing the space of two places. I have to say, the Ainsworth family's displacement magic is really the pinnacle of magic. Wuming praised the displacement magic. Thank you for your praise. Darius seemed to be proud of it and bowed to Wuming again. But, my things are not so easy to control. The water that fell on Wuming and the others automatically dispersed when it was about to touch Wuming and the others. It fell to the ground and slowly flowed into the big pit. Because Wuming and the others were on a higher ground, and Darius and the others were on a lower ground, the water naturally flowed into the big pit. Aya, it seems that the substitution magic isn't working anymore. Darius laughed self-deprecatingly. Chapter 292. At this moment, the inside of the big pit in Winterwood City was filled with water. Only Wuming and the others were at the top of the big pit, and Darius and the others were at the center of the big pit, protected by displacement magic. Oh. Hyunryong, Sama, I didn't expect you to have such a godlike ability. Did you hide it last time? Darius said with a little excitement. Sorry, I didn't hide it. It's okay to tell you. This is a new ability I got from killing the gods of other worlds. Wuming answered Darius's question quite casually. God. Is that true, big brother? Wei Gongshi looked at his elder brother with an even more unusual gaze. Not only was Wei Gongshi like this, even Tong Ying and Bazette had a doubtful look on their faces. Only young Gil was quite excited. Good job, sensei. When will you kill those gods of Sumer mythology? Young Jill said such terrifying words with his beautiful face. Wuming didn't say anything about it. Not only Wuming knew, but young Gil also knew that the original gods were forced to enter a higher dimension after Kanagami's generation, and they could no longer interfere with the operation of the main world. In a sense, those gods were dead and killed by the world. Since Hyunryong, Sama has already made his move, then we can't be weak. With that said, Darius waved his hand, and one of the people who had completed the transformation using the class card raised the bow in his hand. The bow in his hand was very simple, and he was wearing a simple leather armor. He looked abnormally energetic, but his eyes, which were called the soul of a person, were very turbid. The puppet man received Darius's command, and like a machine, he drew the bow and arrow and aimed at the sky. Stella. The puppet man said softly without emotion, then released the bowstring, and the arrow flew to the sky. PFFF. After shooting the arrow, the man's body shattered into pieces. Then, he turned into a broken automaton, and an archer class card turned into ashes. Is it a relic that will be thrown away once it's used? Wuming could tell that his opponent had to sacrifice himself to use the relic. As expected of Ainsworth, such a relic was usually quite powerful. Wuming raised his head to look at the arrow. After reaching the highest point, the arrow began to descend. As it descended, the power of the arrow increased bit by bit. With Wuming's senses, he could tell that once the arrow landed on the ground, it would explode with boundless power that could tear the earth apart. Shiro, use Roajax to protect the two of them. Wuming made a prompt decision and asked Shiro Amiya to use his defensive relic. I don't need to worry about you. Then, Wuming looked at young Gil. Ah, of course, at least I still have the ability to protect myself. Young Gil flicked his hair and waved his hand casually. That's it then. Immediately, Wuming took a step forward. Lightning. 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 I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me, who is on the side of justice, please shine brightly, and give me divine power. Thou hast violated the contract and brought evil to the world. On the Lord's day, the sinner shall be punished. crush his back, dig out his tendons, bones, hair, and brain, and trample on his blood and mud. If I am the one who cannot get close to the darkness, I will follow the Lord's words and destroy thee. In an instant, Wyrm cancelled his flood incarnation and activated his thunder god incarnation and annihilation incarnation. Beep beep beep, Wyrm's body began to flicker with red lightning that was so red it was frightening. Actually, if you dodge now, you should be able to avoid this noble phantasm. Young Gil kindly reminded him. That made Wyrm laugh. If it's you, will you dodge it? Wyrm asked. Of course not, as a king, there's no need to dodge an unknown clown's noble phantasm. Young Gil shook his head. I'm the same, my disciple. As the teacher of the ancient king, Wyrm also had a trace of similarity with Gilgamesh. Wyrm would directly trigger certain things that could be avoided. The unknown was what Wyrm had always been searching for. That was also one of the points. However, Wyrm was not an enemy that he would fight head-on. Otherwise, in Uruk, Wyrm would not have left with Enkidu, but Wyrm would have fought directly. At that time, although Wyrm had not yet grown up, and his talent and physical fitness as the root dragon were still very poor, Wyrm could still fight against these gods at the cost of his vitality. After all, Wyrm was also the root dragon, and he had the strength to do so. In less than 50 years, Wyrm was able to successfully awaken the root dragon's body from an ordinary boy to the point where he could kill gods. That was all thanks to the root dragon's bloodline. That was both a price and a benefit. They sacrificed the strength that other higher life forms were born with in exchange for unprecedented growth in just 50 or even 40 years. This might be the reason why the origin of origins, dragons were able to become peak existences that roamed the various worlds. However, Wyrm seemed to have added the convenience provided by the root dragon's bloodline to his luck. In addition, Wyrm did not dodge for the sake of Winterwood City. Judging by Wyrm's naked eye, the arrow that was about to fall from the sky definitely had the power to blow up Winterwood City. Not to mention that Rindosaka and the others were still in Winterwood City, Wyrm still had the attitude of saving the ordinary people if he could. If he was rich, he would help the world; if he was poor, he would take care of himself. That was the truth. Since I can't dodge, then I'll just melt this arrow that's comparable to a meteor. With that said, Wyrm's lightning burst out and condensed into a lightning beam. It will crush all enemies and enmity, both humans and demons. Wyrm chanted the Thunder God's Incarnation's enhancement rune, which was a special spirit that could instantly enhance the power of the incarnation. This is my body. Boom! The red lightning pillar rushed straight towards the huge source of mana that was descending from the sky. When the two collided, an earth-shattering sound rang out. The white light covered everything, leaving only the residual sound of the explosion, and the violent wind caused by the collision of the authority and the noble phantasm. Chapter 293. When the light gradually disappeared, everyone opened their eyes. The strong hurricane caused by the collision of the relics caused the dust in the air to scatter. As the two relics collided and exploded in mid-air, it did not affect Winterwood City much. However, some of the flowers on the balcony and the signs on the street were blown off. Wyrm used his magic to disperse the dust that was wrapped around his body. Behind Wyrm, a purplish-red cherry blossom shield appeared in the shape of a ball, protecting the people inside. The cherry blossom shield turned into pure magic and dissipated, revealing Shiro Amiya, Sakura Madu, and Bazette. As for young Gil, he did not need anyone to protect him. Are you guys okay? Wyrm turned around and asked. We're fine. What about you, big brother? Just now, the Roajax didn't manage to protect you. Although it was said that it did not protect him, it was actually Wyrm's request. If everyone lost their vision, it would be dangerous. Moreover, Wyrm also needed to deal with any attacks that might come back other than Stella, which was why he wasn't protected by the 7 blazing circles, Roajax. My relic and the opponent's relic cancelled each other out. The only thing that was generated was a super strong storm. This wind is nothing to me. Wyrm waved his hand, indicating that he was fine. If it was just the gust of wind that was stirred up just now, that little bit of power was nothing to Wu Ming. That was a terrifying attack just now. Bazette said with lingering fear. That's right. If the attack just now landed, let's not talk about whether I could protect you guys, the entire Winterwood City would disappear. Shiro Amiya agreed. What? What is that? At that moment, Sakura Madou suddenly pointed to the front and asked. Shiro Amiya and Bazette also looked to the front. Wu Ming was the first to discover it. A semicircular defensive wall, like an ice castle, covered the original location of Darius and the others. After the light produced by the explosion disappeared, Wu Ming discovered this water-blue ice prison that did not match the sand and dust on the battlefield. Wu Ming raised his eyebrows and stretched his hand to the side. The golden ripples wrapped around Wu Ming's right arm. Then, as if he was holding onto something, Wu Ming suddenly pulled his hand out of the golden ripples. The silver spear of the world tree appeared in Wu Ming's hand. Yggdrasil's vines were quite effective against the tortoise shell. My Yggdrasil. Along with the activation of the relic, the Yggdrasil spear was covered in green. Green vines grew from the body of the spear to the tip of the spear. Wu Ming maintained Yggdrasil's real name liberation status and changed his posture into a throwing position. He aimed at the ice prison and threw it hard. Xiao dash. Yggdrasil penetrated the atmosphere and made a sound that broke through the sound barrier. Boom. The ice prison that the World Tree Divine Spear had fiercely attached to exploded violently, and countless vines grew out of the ice prison in a frenzy. A big hole was broken in the ice prison. Swish swish swish. Yggdrasil, who completed the task, returned to Wu Ming's hand and was firmly grasped by Wu Ming. Wu Ming put Yggdrasil back into the golden ripples and looked at Darius and the others in the ice prison. Your tortoise shell is not very good, Darius. Ha ha ha, Hyunryong-sama, you must be joking. Your spear has the ability to break through this relic. Darius was right. If one looked carefully, the vines triggered by Wu Ming's relic were all from the inside of the ice prison. No, it should be from the ice of the ice prison to the outside, just like a plant bud growing out of a stone. When Darius touched the relic, the ice prison turned into a rank card and he held it in his hand. 301 seconds Eternal Ice Palace, that's the name of this relic. What do you think? Not bad, right? Darius took the class card and showed it to Wu Ming and the others. Unfortunately, the class card did not have a class, nor any picture. 301 seconds Eternal Ice Palace? Young Gil frowned. What's wrong, Gil? Wu Ming looked at young Gil. In my memories and my treasury, there is no such precious artifact. Wu Ming certainly understood what young Gil meant. As the ancient king, Gilgamesh's Gate of Babylon contained almost all the prototypes of relic. As long as there was a relic that appeared before, it could be found in Gilgamesh's treasury. However, young Jill said that she had never heard of this 301-second Eternal Ice Palace, which was quite thought-provoking. It may also happen to be a relic that was not included in my Gate of Babylon, but the probability is somewhat unbelievable. Although the Gate of Babylon contained almost all the prototypes of relic, it was inevitable that there would be some left out. Almost all of them meant that it was not absolute. It was very likely that this relic was not included in Gilgamesh's treasury. But, I don't believe that he would have a noble artifact that you don't have in your Gate of Babylon. Wu Ming looked at Darius again, who had a smile on his face. Maybe, this is a relic that Darius created himself. Shiro Amiya, Sakura Madou, and Bazette all widened their eyes. Created his own relic? Is this really possible for modern people? Sakura Madou covered her mouth in disbelief. Well, after all, the one next to you has the ability to create relic. Wu Ming pointed at Bazette. Is Ms. Bazette so powerful? Sakura Madou looked at Bazette in surprise. Shiro Amiya also looked at this rather cold partner of his in a new light. Although I can create the backlight sword, it is entirely because I am the descendant of the inheritance germ protector family. Compared to your man who has begun to heroic spirit, I am still far behind. Bizet closed her eyes and said calmly to Sakura Madu. On the other hand, Tong Ying and Wei Gong Shiro's faces turned red. Wuming did not pay attention to the conversation between Shiro Amiya and the others. Instead, he looked at Darius, who had a new move. Well. Since Sir Virtuous Dragon was able to break this precious artifact so easily, then these few cards are just showing off in front of an expert. As he spoke, Darius took out 2 more job rank cards without any pictures. Next, let's start the real stage performance, Hyunryong Sama. After that, Darius walked into the transparent ripple behind him. Coincidentally, a large amount of black mud was constantly emerging from the transparent ripple. ZZ. Woo. Wuming. I've connected. Suddenly, a virtual screen appeared next to Wuming. On the screen were Kalis, Rin Enban, and Luvia, whose cheeks were red and swollen. Chapter 294. What did you two do just now? Wuming asked curiously when he saw that their cheeks were a little red. Nothing. Ahaha. Yeah, ahahaha. Rin and Osaka and Luvia waved their hands in a panic, then stared at each other fiercely. How could they say that they were slapped by each other because they were fighting for the master position? Kalis bowed to Wuming. Master, due to the sudden explosion of a large amount of magic, our communication was temporarily disrupted, but it's fine now. Wuming nodded. The large amount of magic that Kalis was talking about should be the chaos caused by the collision of the relics. We're on our way to your location, we'll be there in about 5 minutes. Okay, I understand. Kalis, remember to keep an eye on these two, don't let them cause any trouble. Wuming was still worried about Rin and Osaka and Luvia. Yes, master. Kalis then turned off the communication. Wuming looked once again at the black mud that had already begun to spread, and at the few card users who were already rushing over. Shiro, Sakura, Bizet, start attacking the enemy. Remember not to touch the black mud, and protect yourselves first. Wuming noticed that the moment the black mud appeared, except for the puppets that had no self-consciousness, Angelica and Beatrice used displacement magic to separate their feet from the black mud. As for the puppets standing on the black mud, their bodies began to undergo some black changes. There was no doubt that the corrosive power of the black mud had reached its peak. Wuming could feel that the black mud that Julian released last time was nothing compared to this black mud. Understood. Bizet responded, and without waiting for Wuming to finish, he rushed toward the attacking enemies. Wuming raised his eyebrows, feeling helpless. You guys go too. Okay, big brother, Oniai-sama. After that, Shiro Amiya covered his body with magic and turned into Amiya's costume. Sakura Madu took out the card that Wuming adjusted before and used Dream Summoning. Install, Dream Summoning. The lower half of her body was a normal black armor, but the upper half of her body was a black armor that could only cover her chest. A black mask with only a slit covered her face, and a few lines that looked like electronic cables extended out from behind Midori Sakura. Red mana patterns also wrapped around his body. Even his black armor and mask had red mana patterns on them. Because of Wuming's modification, the black armor was slightly blue, and it didn't have the arrogance of Berserker. It was very suitable for Sakura Madu, a woman like Sakura Madu, to use it, and it could reflect Sakura Madu's beauty. Let's go together, senpai. Sakura Madu smiled at Shiro Amiya. Shiro Amiya reacted, but he didn't blush or even feel embarrassed, but he smiled and nodded. Ah, let's go together, Sakura. Wuming looked at the two running away and shook his head helplessly. Really, you're still so lovey-dovey on the battlefield. However, Wuming smiled. Both of them had found a good home. Looking at the black mud followers that kept emerging from the black mud, Wuming opened his hands. Then, let's begin, my followers. My followers, my servants, the time for war has come, so now, show your brave and fearless figure, for your master, for the king. Before the black mud had completely corroded the ground, the earth had already turned golden. 3-meter-tall steel golems walked up step by step, as if they were walking on a staircase. The iron golem that came up from the golden ground had a layer of faint golden light. That was the power of origin, provided by Wyrm. And those followers that emerged from the black mud had starlight that was as deep as the universe. That was the power of origin, provided by the black mud. The power of origin had infinite changes, and there was no fixed form. Even Wyrm, who was born from origin, couldn't clearly understand origin. Holy Grail. Holy Grail. Holy Grail, countless black mud that couldn't be seen were like zombies, moving slowly in the direction of Wyrm. These were the heroes that pursued the Holy Grail but didn't end well. Now, they were eroded by the black mud and became abnormal. Bang! An iron fist hit the black mud follower at the front. The iron golems under Wyrm's command were inanimate and unconscious magic products. The level of the iron golems was not very high. They could only be used as cannon fodder in many top battles, and they were only level 70. However, these iron golems had great magic resistance and physical armor. Although their attack power was not very good, they were quite good as meat shields and delay time. Moreover, Wyrm's origin, Dragon's Aura was added, so these iron golems had a resistance and restraining attribute against the black mud followers. It was just an armed fist, but with a body that was 3 meters tall, the impact of the fist was not weak, and with the restraining attribute given by silent sound, the black mud followers that were attacked by the iron golem were all emitting black smoke, and they were in great pain. However, as a mutual restraint, the black mud followers could also completely subdue these iron golems with the origin, dragon's attributes. Just like divinity, in general, divinity often had the power to add damage to everything, but if it encountered a weapon or power that restrained divinity, then the guy with divinity would be unlucky. One by one, the black mud followers pounced on the iron golems, and their huge bodies brought poor flexibility. The iron golems fell to the ground and were divided by the black mud followers, turning into pure magic power and disappearing. The black mud followers and the iron golems began to fight. At present, it seemed that the iron golems were obviously at a disadvantage, and their foundation was a lot worse. Sure enough, these iron golems alone can't fight against the followers, even these cracked followers are the same. Wyrm said in a tone that was expected. However, it's enough to hold them back. Suddenly, whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Wyrm moved gently and dodged several noble phantoms. The noble phantoms fell to the ground, causing a violent explosion, and then turned into golden particles and disappeared. Wyrm looked at the place where the noble phantoms were shot. Angelica stretched out a hand, and several golden ripples appeared on the gate of Babylon behind her. "We meet again, Hyunryong," Angelica said coldly. Wyrm looked at Tong Ying and Bazette, who were being held back by several puppet-level card users, and Wei Gong Shiro, who was being held back by Beatrice. Then, Wyrm looked at Angelica again. "You're going to be defeated by me, and you're lucky that you didn't die. Why, do you still want to try your luck?" On the contrary, Angelica, who was usually emotionless, expressed her feelings this time. "I want to defeat you, Sensei." Angelica's originally emotionless eyes revealed a desire to fight. "I see, are you seriously affected by Gilgamesh's card?" Wyrm saw Angelica's current state. Gilgamesh was originally a top-level heroic spirit. Theoretically, even if he was eroded by the black soil, he should be able to maintain his consciousness and not disappear. However, the black soil was not ordinary black soil. It was black soil that was mixed with the root dragon's aura and had the power of the root. This caused the meaning of Gilgamesh's card that Angelica used to be basically clear. However, even if Gilgamesh had lost his consciousness, his power was not something that ordinary people could use. Angelica was subconsciously affected. Coupled with her previous experience of failure, it caused Angelica to be obsessed with Wyrm. "No matter how you look at it, it's your fault, Gil." Wuming looked at young Gil who was standing at the side without moving. You can't blame me for this, sensei. It's natural for the disciple to surpass the master. We've never fought before. It's understandable that my lower body wants to surpass you. If you want to blame someone, blame it on being my mentor, sensei. Young Gil waved his hand and pushed the blame to Wuming. Wuming smiled. If that's the case, then I'll fight you as Hyunryong, Gilgamesh's mentor, Angelica. Chapter 295. Swish swish swish. Countless relics shot towards Wuming from Angelica's back. Boom boom boom. Wuming dodged the relics one after another as he moved towards Angelica. The relics behind Wuming exploded violently, causing smoke and dust to fill the air. Young Jill, on the other hand, was watching the battle between Wuming and Angelica with interest from a high vantage point. Is he going to fight as Hyunryong's mentor? I remember that my mentor taught me about combat. Does this mean that my mentor is going to fight with my lower body as a warrior? Young Gil sat cross-legged on the platform with his hands supporting his chin. How nostalgic. Just as young Gil expected, Wuming, who was almost in front of Angelica, took out Yggdrasil from the golden ripples at the side. Tisk. Angelica frowned and snorted unhappily. Subsequently, the golden ripples behind Angelica increased in number. Swish swish swish. However, Wuming, who had obtained the weapon, began to display his endless martial arts skills. Clang 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 clang. Wuming controlled Yggdrasil and displayed the martial arts skills that he had learned from the Mirror Queen, Skaha. Countless relics that were shot towards Wuming were deflected. There was nothing fancy or beautiful about it. It was merely a display of martial arts skills to achieve a goal. There were not many fancy moves in the art of killing. The only goal was to kill the enemy. On the other hand, Wuming, who had bounced off countless relics, was getting closer to Angelica. Suddenly, a gap appeared in front of Wuming who was moving forward. In an instant, Wuming was transported far away. After dodging a few relics, Wuming stood firm and looked at Angelica. In a sense, the Ainsworth family's displacement magic is really cheating. Wuming leaned on Yggdrasil and said helplessly. Ha ha ha, I didn't say that I'm going to fight you as Gilgamesh, mentor. Young Gil, who was in the sky, laughed heartily. Angelica did not agree but did not refute either. Well, you're right. It's on me this time. Wuming smiled. Then, let's start the next round. Wuming's eyes suddenly became sharp. A few Lune runes appeared and wrapped around Wuming's body. Coming. In an instant, Wuming's speed became extremely fast and almost reached supersonic speed. Angelica continuously released her relic but she could only hit Wuming's. If that's the case. Angelica opened two parallel spaces behind her, allowing countless relics to constantly move between the two spaces created by the displacement magic, making the relics in the Gate of Babylon accelerate without limit. In an instant, Angelica cancelled the displacement magic, and countless relics burst out at supersonic speed toward Wuming. Clang, clang, clang. Although Wuming was hit, Wuming's reaction was still able to bounce them away. Yggdrasil. In an instant, Wuming performed primary release on Yggdrasil and threw it toward Angelica. The World Tree God's spear rubbed against the air and shot toward Angelica by leaps and bounds. Hum. Accompanied by a faint sound, the space in front and behind Angelica was replaced. Yggdrasil in primary release was just a holy spear with a fierce impact and vitality. It didn't have any extra attributes. Yggdrasil passed through the space and slammed into the ground, causing a violent explosion. The wind caused by the explosion blew Angelica's ponytails, making them flutter in the wind. Your relic doesn't work, Hyunryong. Angelica still looked indifferent. Then use the sword. That was Wuming who had taken out X-Silver from the golden ripple. X-Silver. Wuming performed primary release on X-Silver. In an instant, light gathered on the sword, and X-Silver turned into a huge light sword. As Wu Ming uttered the true name, the lightsaber was violently swung out. The dazzling light rushed toward Angelica. Clang, 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 clang. Shields emerged from the gate of Babylon behind Angelica and fell to the ground. The shields were stacked on top of each other, forming a shield relic. Boom! The light cannon bombarded the shield, making a loud noise. Angelica dispersed the shield and looked at Wu Ming. "I've been waiting for you." Wu Ming suddenly got in through the gap between the scattered shields and raised the holy sword toward Angelica. Wu Ming used the light and sound of the light cannon as a cover, blocking Angelica's vision and hearing, sneaking in front of the shield, waiting for an opportunity to attack. "Don't even think about it." Angelica was shocked, but fortunately, she was vigilant in advance and instantly used displacement magic again. Because the preparation was a bit hasty, this time displacement magic only replaced a small space. It only replaced the space at the tip of the meteor's silver and the space behind Wu Ming. "But, if it was me in the past, I might have fallen for it," Wu Ming suddenly said. Just as the meteor's silver was about to enter the space, a golden ripple suddenly appeared in front of the meteor's silver. As Wu Ming leaned forward, the entire meteor's silver was swallowed by Wu Ming's space relic, Dragonist. Pata! Wu Ming's hands entered the space and came out from the space behind Wu Ming, hitting Wu Ming's back. Wu Ming smiled when he felt that he had punched himself. "It feels good to massage my own back." However, Wu Ming's weapon was gone. Angelica naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. "I didn't expect the famous Master Hyunryong to make such a low-level mistake." As Angelica spoke to me, countless golden ripples surrounded Wu Ming and relics appeared one after another. "No, how could that be?" Wu Ming smiled. "I see. It's that move." Young Gil, who was sitting in the sky with his legs crossed, recalled something and said with interest. Since young Gil had already recalled it, it didn't make sense that Angelica, who was subconsciously influenced by Gilgamesh, didn't notice the lower half of young Gil's body. Angelica looked at Wu Ming's smile and felt a strong sense of uneasiness. "It seems like Gilgamesh's card power has sensed something," Wu Ming said, but he didn't let go of his hand. Wu Ming clenched his fist and countless vines broke out from the ground and entangled Angelica. Yggdrasil, who was not far behind Angelica, had already activated his relic and was ready for battle. Swoosh! The sound of chains was heard and a few golden chains entangled Angelica, sealing her magical power. In just a few breaths, Hyunryong had subdued his disciple, the Hero King. Chapter 296. Here you go, Angelica. With that said, Wu Ming put his hand on Angelica's stomach. Wu Ming exerted force, and Angelica's whole body glowed. Ah! The pain of being stripped of her class card made Angelica moan. When the light dissipated, Angelica, who was bound by Enkidu and vines, changed her clothes into a set of home clothes. And Wu Ming had an extra card in his hand. Archer, Archer, Wu Ming read the name on the class card. This class card was Gilgamesh's upper body. Wu Ming threw it behind him indifferently, and a small hand caught the card. The owner of the hand was young Gil, who had already come down from the floating platform in the sky. "You've really helped me a lot, teacher." Young Gil looked at the class card in his hand happily. "Okay, I've found your upper body for you. Be a good audience and watch this farce." Wu Ming knew his disciple well. Once he regained his real body, it was hard to say what would happen. Yes, I didn't want to participate this time. I'm still very interested in the comedy between teacher and clowns." "You have a bad taste." Wu Ming raised his eyebrows. "By the way, what are you going to do with this woman?" Young Gil pointed at Angelica with interest. In this regard, Wu Ming fell into silence. On the other side, Shiro Amiya and Beatrice. He. "Don't run, come and fight with me." Beatrice was like a psychopath, madly roaring at Shiro Amiya, laughing, and constantly smashing Mjolnir in her hand at Shiro Amiya. "I'm sorry, but I know my limits. If I'm hit by this hammer, I'll be finished." Shiro Amiya jumped, dodging the incoming giant hammer and the surging lightning on the giant hammer. Hee hee ha ha ha. Then why don't you just obediently die? However, Beatrice did not care about Shiro Amiya at all. She just kept attacking Shiro Amiya. TSK, this power isn't something that a simple person can possess. Wei Gong Sherlang once again dodged a lightning strike by a hair's breadth, and said while panting heavily. However, the user is a berserker. Beatrice was now like a berserker. She laughed wildly and controlled the Mjolnir in her hand to attack crazily. If that's the case, then I'll kill him in one strike. Instantly, Shiro Amiya's eyes turned cold. Race on, projection begin. Shiro Amiya's feet suddenly stopped, and he quickly turned and ran toward Beatrice. You finally stopped running? Then go to hell. Beatrice looked at Shiro Amiya, laughed, raised the Mjolnir, and began to charge. Immediately, Shiro Amiya waved his hand, and blue lines lit up on his body. Several noble phantoms appeared out of thin air and shot toward Beatrice. It's completely useless. Beatrice smirked as she swung the Mjolnir that was still charged with electricity down on the ground. Several noble phantoms made by Shiro Amiya were directly smashed and disappeared. Race on, projection begin. In an instant, Wei Gong Shiro raised one of his hands, and a gigantic sword that was as tall as the heavens and the earth was projected. Is it a Galima? Beatrice recognized the huge weapon at a glance. Beatrice once saw it in Angelica's treasure house. That weapon was one of the two swords held by Zabarba, the god of war in Mesopotamia. It was a noble phantasm called Igialima, the green horizon of 1,000 mountains. There's one in Angelica's treasury as well. But it seems like yours is just a fake that imitates its appearance. Beatrice did not retreat but went forward and slammed the Mjolnir in her hand on the fake Igalama. Boom! Crack! Igalama and Mjolnir collided with each other, and with a cracking sound, Igalama was directly smashed by Mjolnir. Ha ha ha, it's great! That's great! Beatrice laughed maniacally as she stood on the mountain-slicing sword that was stabbed into the ground. Beatrice, who was laughing, suddenly found that Shiro Amiya was gone. Are you going to play hide-and-seek this time? Hee hee hee, Beatrice said with a smile. It's the mouse that eats the cat. Shiro Amiya's voice came from behind Beatrice. Beatrice turned her head and saw Shiro Amiya holding a black bow with a strange spiral arrow on it. The moment Beatrice turned her head, Shiro Amiya let go of the bowstring. Boom! The spiral sword exploded, and the flame buried Beatrice. The wind set off by the explosion blew Shiro Amiya's robe. It seemed that Beatrice had disappeared in the flame. However, Shiro Amiya did not let down his guard. Very good. That's it. Resist, and then be crushed under my feet. Beatrice rushed out of the flame, shouting excitedly, and her expression became more and more ferocious. Beatrice rushed directly to Shiro Amiya. Roajax, blazing 7 circles. Shiro Amiya opened the cherry blossom shield with one hand, blocking Beatrice's hammer attack. Although it seemed that the injury was not light, Beatrice became more and more courageous. She chased after Shiro Amiya and hit him all the way. Each petal was as thick as an ancient city wall. 7 petals. Looking at the rapidly decreasing petals, Shiro Amiya sighed again. You're really a berserker. You're really as difficult to deal with as a cockroach. You're the same. You're as difficult to deal with as a mouse. Although Beatrice said that, she did not stop her actions. Her Mjolnir kept hammering the 7 blazing rings, Roajax, madly. Boom! The last petal broke, and the cherry blossom shield in Shiro Amiya's hand was broken. Die! Beatrice's eyes flashed fiercely, and the lightning on Mjolnir suddenly exploded, carrying out a fatal blow. However, Shiro Amiya only projected a pair of black and white dual swords. Crane wings fall no, mine's skill mount Tai, mine's skill crossing the Yellow River, mine's skill receiving heaven, 2 heroes share the same fate. The dual swords that were less than a meter long changed shape and became a pair of black and white dual swords that were more than a meter long like two wings. A few red lights flashed in the smoke behind Beatrice. Random, triple-linked crane wings triple combo. Slash. The sound of the blade cutting through flesh was heard. Two pairs of ferocious wing blades, together with the pair of long swords in Shiro Amiya's hands, cut through Beatrice's body. Shiro Amiya used the smoke and flames of the explosion produced by the pseudo-spiraling sword to hide the other two pairs of moe swords. When Beatrice was focused on Shiro Amiya and thought that she had won, he launched a sneak attack from behind and successfully took down Beatrice. Shiro Amiya's dual swords were on the neck of Beatrice, who was paralyzed on the ground and could not stand up, and said condescendingly, "Now you're a general, berserker." Chapter 297. The scene changed. Wuming looked at Angelica and thought carefully. Young Gil looked at Wuming and Angelica with interest. I originally wanted to kill her directly. At this moment, Wuming, who had been silent for a long time, spoke. Wuming did not lie. When Angelica and Beatrice came to Ilia's parallel world together, Wuming opened the inherent barrier with the idea of blasting them into pieces. Although he also did not want young Gil to obtain half of his body. As the saying goes, things are constantly changing. I've been abandoned by Lord Darius. Now, I'm an abandoned person. You can kill me or cut me up as you wish. Angelica looked at him. Oh, you're quite self-aware. Young Gil's smile became even brighter. Obviously, young Gil had also seen through Angelica's identity as an abandoned person. Wuming was the same. It would be better to say that Wuming discovered that Angelica was an abandoned person earlier than young Gil. It was Darius's order to go to the parallel world to capture Mayu. However, only Angelica and Beatrice were sent to capture her. After all, Darius had several new puppet subordinates by his side. There was no need to send out Angelica, who had Gilgamesh's card, and Beatrice, who was suspected to have Thor's card. Most importantly, Wuming did not believe that Darius did not guess that Wuming would be by Mayo's side. Knowing that Wuming was there, Darius still sent a team of only 2 people to the parallel world. It was obvious that these 2 were already dispensable abandoned people. Well, since you've already accepted your fate, then stay here obediently. After everything is over, I'll deal with you. Wuming said simply, then controlled the vines and Enkidu to release Angelica. As for Angelica, she stood there obediently as if she was a captive, not moving at all. Seeing this scene, Wuming frowned in disgust. Of course, he did not hate Angelica, but he hated Ainsworth's displacement magic. Angelica's identity was already known. She was Julian's sister, the eldest daughter of the Ainsworth family. She died when Black Mud was released by Darius and was then replaced by the displacement magic. Unlike the puppet that Wuming saw before, it was full of emotions and selfishness like Atlam. Instead, it was a puppet that took the master's orders as the highest order. On the other hand, the puppets that Tong Ying and Bazette fought against were of a lower level. They were emotionless, irrational, and selfless. It could be said that they were purely used for the class card to possess them and act as combat power. Tricks that played with souls, no matter which world it was in, would be punished by the heavens. Zelik once talked to Wuming that the Ainsworth family had something to do with the crisis of the world's destruction. In addition, Darius was the ancestor of the Ainsworth family, and he lived to this day. Wuming didn't believe that he had no ulterior motives. And such a family that played with souls, even if the descendants wanted to change, it was already impossible. Julian, who was almost completely replaced, was the result. Aria's father, sister, and everyone in his family had all died in the disaster that had happened almost 6 years ago. It was also during that disaster that Julian began to be replaced by Darius. As for the so-called Erica Ainsworth, she was of a higher level than Darius. Wuming suspected that if Zelik didn't save the world, the restraints would probably send people to destroy the Ainsworth family. Wuming shook his head helplessly. If you can, try to make yourself smile. Then, Wuming walked in the direction of Shiro, Amiya and the others. Angelica was stunned. She touched her face. Smile, huh? Young Gil looked at the puppet and shook his head. As expected, there will be a day when you get tired of toys. Then, young Gil followed Wuming's footsteps. Only Angelica, who was ordered to stay put, stayed on the spot alone. Nair, later to arrive first, Bazette abruptly used his fist to push out the dagger that had revealed its true form. Flagalak, slash of the war god. Thud. This was the sound of the exhausted backlight sword falling to the ground. Plop. This was the sound of the puppet opposite Bazette who used the class card falling to the ground. At this point, the class card users who surrounded Bazette and Sakura Madu were all killed. This should be all the enemies. Bazette moved his body that was a little stiff from using the backlight sword too many times. Yes, Miss Bazette. I'm also done here. Sakura Madu walked over from the side and said politely. Looking at the wreckage of the backlight sword on the ground, even the usually serious Bazette's mouth twitched. Almost all the backlight swords in my inventory were used up, Bazette comforted himself, but it was worth it after all. It wasn't a loss. These people have become puppets without any sense of self. It's so sad. Sakura Madu looked at the simple automatons on the ground and said sadly. However, because they don't have any sense of self, we can turn the tide under the attack of so many enemies. Bazette tidied up his clothes and picked up the cylinder that was used to store the backlight sword. Now, the cylinder was completely empty. No matter what, there were multiple servants. Even if Bazette could use the backlight sword to offset a servant's noble phantasm, facing many servants, Bazette couldn't use several backlight swords at the same time. If these servants used their noble phantasm at the beginning, Bazette and Sakura Madu might really die here. That's right. I hope these people's souls can go smoothly and not be used by bad people. Sakura Madu prayed. At this time, Shiro Amiya came to Sakura Madu's side. How is it, Sakura? Is it over? Shiro Amiya carried a red-haired loli who was unconscious and held a berserker class card in his hand. Yes, Senpai also defeated the enemy. Are you injured? Sakura Madu asked Shiro Amiya with concern. Shiro Amiya shook his head. I'm fine, but this person was not injured by my fatal attack, so I directly knocked her out, and the class card came out. As he spoke, Wei Gongshi waved the rank card in his hand. In short, Senpai is fine. Sakura Madu's face under the mask showed a smile, looking at Shiro Amiya. Shiro Amiya was a little embarrassed, and his cheeks were red. Is everyone okay? At this time, Wuming came. We're fine. Bazette looked at the black mud and steel battle that was still going on in the distance and said. Onie-sama. Sakura Madu bowed to Wuming. It was obvious that Sakura Madu was not injured. Brother. Shiro Amiya took the red-haired loli and the class card in his hand in front of Wuming. Sure enough, she is the same as Angelica, a non-degraded version of the class card. Wuming took the class card and then looked at the unconscious Beatrice. Just when Wuming wanted to say something, the virtual screen from Showa Suki's residence suddenly appeared. Rin Enosaka's slightly anxious face appeared. Wuming, hurry up and leave that place. I've detected a large amount of magic power condensing here. Chapter 298. Wuming and the others set off, while Rin Enbin and the others entered the control room. Rin Enbin and Luvia stood in front of the control room with their arms crossed, while Luvia stood elegantly in front of the control room. Neither of them spoke. Kalis floated between the two, waiting helplessly for them to move. Ms. Rin, Ms. Luvia, please hurry into the control room. Master needs backup. Kalis' cold voice sounded. Yeah, you're right. Wuming needs my backup. Rin Enbin proudly flipped her twin ponytails. What a joke, Rin Enbin. I'm afraid that you don't even know how to activate it. What if you press the wrong button? Wouldn't Wuming's magic workshop be destroyed? Luvia looked at Rin provocatively. Don't worry, I'm very honest. I'm not like some blonde girl who only knows how to show off. Rin Enbin and Luvia looked at each other. It was as if sparks were flying between them. The battle between their gazes was abnormally intense. I won't argue with you today. Rin Enbin finished speaking and walked into the control room. I should be the one saying that. Luvia caught up with Rin Enbin and walked into the control room together. However, the control room's door couldn't accommodate the two of them at the same time. Thus, the awkward situation of the two of them being stuck in the middle of the door was created. Get out of my way. You're the one. You barbaric monkey. The two of them were like contestants in a competition. They pressed their palms against each other's palms. Their crazed faces were pressed tightly against each other. Kalis was silent. A pair of wings grew out of her dragon horn headwear. Smack! Smack! Kalis retracted her wings and spoke elegantly. Ladies, please enter the control room in an orderly manner. I was sent by Master to supervise the two of you. If you don't listen, I have the right to continue my actions. Rin Enbin and Luvia covered their swollen faces with tears in their eyes. How dare you hit my face, really, how can you treat ladies like this? Rin Enosaka and Luvia protested. In the blink of an eye, Kelly spread out her wings. Luvia, you go in first. No. Ling, you go first. The moment they saw the pair of wings, the two of them became like a loving family and began to be courteous to each other. Please hurry up. Kalis's voice was mixed with a trace of annoyance. This time, Rin Enosaka and Luvia stopped being modest and entered the control room in an orderly manner. Kalis followed him in the air. Coincidentally, this scene was seen by Ilya, Blackie, and Mei Yu, who had entered the Shuayu residence with curiosity. Unexpectedly, I feel that Miss Kalis is very dignified. She doesn't look like a ruby at all. Ilya looked at the ruby floating beside her with disdain. Mei Yu and Little Hay nodded in agreement. Even Sapphire nodded humanely after a moment of silence. Wait. What do you mean you don't look like me at all? I'm a negative teaching material. Also, forget about Mei Yu and Little Hay, Little Blue actually bullied me with Ilya. Woo-woo. After saying that, Ruby turned around like a human and let out a sobbing sound. Sister, please be more reserved. Don't be so embarrassing. Sapphire comforted her with a tone of, it's so troublesome to have a childish solution. Also, Senior Emerald is indeed more dignified than you. As expected of Master Wuming's exclusive magic attire. She's as reliable as Master Wuming. This time, it was Ilya's turn to be embarrassed. I feel like Sapphire means that I, the one with the ruby, am unreliable. Are we really going in? Mei Yu raised her hand and asked. Mei Yu, Ilya, and Little Hay came here to see the magic workshop's activation. Of course, Mei Yu was instigated by Little Hay and Ilya. Of course we're going in. Otherwise, why are we here? Little Hay waved her hand, expressing helplessness. Yes. Yes, Mei Yu, since we're here, I think it should be fine for us to go in and take a look. Ilya said embarrassedly. But, the control room is the core of Brother Wuming's magic workshop. Even if Sister Ling and Sister Luvia went in, they were accompanied by Kalis. The last visit was also accompanied by Brother Wuming. It's not good for us to go in like this. Mei Yu felt that Wuming didn't tell Mei Yu and others about the existence of the control room because of the importance of the control room. So, with her two little friends' instigation, Mei Yu still felt a little nervous. It's alright since Big Brother was able to let Ling and Luvia, these two rash brats, into the control room. I'm sure he'll be on guard against them. We're not like them, not to mention, isn't Kelly still inside? While speaking, Xiao Hei pushed Mio and pushed her towards the control room. I know, don't push me. Mei Yu said with a red face. At this time, the Shuayu residence shook. Mayu, little Hay, do you feel the vibration here? Ilya, who was standing in the same place, said in detail. It must be said that although Ilya was very rash and sometimes like an idiot, she was often the first to discover something. Last time when Bazette attacked Livia's house, it was Ilya who first noticed the vibration and felt that something was wrong. Only then did Ilya pull little Hay to Livia's house. Is there? I didn't feel it. Me too. Little Hay and Mayu stopped and shook their heads. At this time, rumble. The Shuayu residence shook violently as if there was a great earthquake. What? What happened? What's going on? Earthquake? Ilya, little Hay, and Mayu were all shaken by this great vibration and fell to the ground. Ling and Livia must have done something in the control room. Little Hay made a prompt decision. He immediately got up and rushed toward the control room. Wait! Wait, little Hay! Ilya called out to little Hay and got up from the ground. Mayu did the same. She immediately got up and chased after little Hay with Ilya. Ling! Livia! What are you doing? Little Hay rushed into the control room and started shouting. After shouting, little Hay was stunned. Wait, little Hay! Ilya caught up from behind. Then, Ilya and Mayu were also stunned. The control room that was originally like a laboratory was now shining with starlight as if it was a magical technology. Every instrument emitted a light that could penetrate one's heart. The twisted wand floated and emitted a 7-colored light. The simple and unadorned book emitted a dazzling light like the stars. Rin Enbin and Livia were standing in front of the big screen in the center. Rin Enbin and Livia were communicating with Wuming on the screen. When they saw Ilya and the others come in, they asked in confusion. Why did you come in? Chapter 299. Rin and Osaka and Livia stepped back, leaving Kalis to talk to Wuming. Rin and Osaka and Livia greeted the three Lolas. Sister Rin, Sister Livia, what was the earthquake just now? Ilya asked shyly as she told them about the violent tremors that happened just now. It might be because Wuming and the others were fighting with the enemy. Ahahaha, that's right, looks like the enemy is very strong. Ahahaha, Rin and Osaka and Livia pretended to be calm as they laughed. It's suspicious. Little Black stared at Rin and Osaka and Livia with a scrutinizing gaze. Then, Little Black retracted his gaze. Well, I'll trust you this time. Rin and Osaka and Livia, who pretended to be calm, secretly let out a sigh of relief. At this time, the conversation between Kalis and Wuming entered their ears. We're on our way to your location and will arrive in about 5 minutes. Kalis reported to Wuming. Okay, I understand. Kalis, remember to keep an eye on these two and don't let them cause any trouble. Yes, Master. Kalis immediately turned off the communication. The dragon horn headdress turned around. Even though it didn't have eyes, Kalis's intimidating gaze made Rin and Osaka and Livia feel a chill. Then, Kalis opened her mouth. Although due to Miss Rin and Miss Livia's improper operation, the workshop isn't operating normally, but for now, the lunar temple is operating normally. Then, Kalis floated to the central platform and sat down steadily. Miss Rin and Miss Livia, please go to your designated location. The lunar temple is moving towards Master. Yes. Rin and Osaka and Livia said with enthusiasm and immediately got to work. Miss Kalis is still quite dignified. Seeing this scene, Ilya once again expressed her opinion. By the way, how is the thing moving towards Big Brother moving? Fly or teleport? Xiao Hei asked with great interest. Regarding this, Miss Chloe can go to the control room and take a look through the window. Kalis' voice sounded. With puzzled expressions, Blackie, Mayu, and Ilya left the control room. As soon as they stepped out of the control room, the three of them found that the original Japanese-style structure of the Shuasuki residence had changed into a futuristic blue color. This this is. Ilya's heart was filled with shock. There's a window over there. Xiao He pointed somewhere. Although it had become sci-fi, the internal structure of the Shuoyu residence had not changed much. Little Black casually found a window and opened it. Then, he led Meiyu and Ilya to lie on it and look outside. What the three of them saw was a misty sky and a house the size of a toy on the ground. At this moment, the Shuoyu residence had changed from its original square residence to an ancient temple that resembled an airship. As for the insignificant changes to the internal structure, it could only be attributed to spatial technology. Is it flying? Blackie, Ilya, and Meiyu were all shocked. Is this what Big Brother meant by being able to fly? It's really amazing. Ilya had a look of excitement. What do you guys think? Meiyu, Blackie. Yeah. Meiyu said indifferently to express her agreement. Moreover, Meiyu's eyes that were filled with pleasant surprise showed that Meiyu's heart was not calm. Look. At this moment, Blackie pointed somewhere below. Meiyu and Ilya looked over. It was at the side of Winterwood City. There was a huge crater. From the center, a large area of black soil and a large area of golden soil surrounded the black soil covered the huge crater. That's not black soil, but black mud. Meiyu looked at these things and said thoughtfully. Although Meiyu had never seen it before, Wuming had once told Meiyu stories about the battle between Wuming and Ainsworth. Through her own judgment, coupled with her high-altitude vision, Meiyu was able to guess that it was black mud. It really seems to be black mud. Is this the black mud that Big Brother said absolutely cannot be touched? Ilya leaned forward and said while looking into the huge crater. Those fighting with Big Brother's iron golem should be the black mud followers that Big Brother mentioned. Blackie pointed at the indistinct figure that was fighting with the iron golem at the intersection of the black mud and golden soil. Brother Wuming and the others are also there. Meiyu saw Wuming, Shiro Amiya, and the others who had defeated the enemy and stood together. At this moment, the originally open window suddenly closed. Ha! This startled the three of them. Maybe something happened. Let's go to the control room and take a look. Blackie said and took the lead to run to the control room. As soon as they entered the control room, Ilya and the others heard Rin Enbin's voice. Wuming, you guys quickly leave there. A large amount of magic is being detected here. The screen in front of Rin Enbin showed the image of Wuming and the others. Although Rin Enbin said so, Wuming shook his head. There's no need. After that, Wuming turned his head and looked at the center of the crater. In the center of the crater, where Darius had disappeared, there was something strange. The black mud followers that were about to win suddenly stopped and turned into black mud and merged into the black mud on the ground. Like a tsunami, black mud burst out from the center of the crater and spread out at an astonishing speed towards the surroundings of the crater. It was estimated that it would take a few seconds to return to Wuming. This feeling, what is this? Ilya looked at the black mud through the screen and felt the trembling in her soul. Not only Ilya, but also Blackie, Meiyu, Rin Enbin, Luvia, and the others felt the malice from their soul. Rin Enbin and the others began to tremble through the screen, not to mention Shiro Amiya and the others who were at the scene. Wuming stretched out his hand and Enkidu appeared and tied up Shiro Amiya and the others. Then, Wuming took them into the air. Rin, use the teleportation device to retrieve Shiro and the others. Wuming looked at the screen floating beside him and said to Rin Enbin. As for the young Gil, Wuming didn't see him before. Rin Enbin nodded and shouted to Luvia on the other side. Luvia. Understood. Then, a small opening opened at the bottom of the lunar temple that was close to the big hole. A device similar to a signal receiver extended out. The device lit up. At the same time, Shiro Amiya and the others' bodies also lit up. In an instant, Shiro Amiya and the others disappeared. They had been taken back by the lunar temple. Big Brother, is it really okay to leave one person behind? Shiro Amiya, who was teleported to the control room, quickly came in front of the screen and said to Wuming in a worried tone. Ilya and the others were also very worried. Especially Meiyu, she was about to cry. In comparison, this thing could make one's soul tremble. Don't worry, this black mud can't do anything to me. Wuming said gently and told Meiyu and the others not to worry. Gradually, the remaining iron golems on the battlefield were swallowed up. Flying in the air, Wuming saw Angelica, who was still in a daze. Heaven Lock, Enkidu, extended and silent cry pulled Angelica, who was about to be touched by the black mud, up. At this point, the black mud completely covered the big hole and swallowed all the iron golems. Chapter 300. Wuming helplessly hugged Angelica, who was dragged up by the Heaven Lock. I told you to stay put, and you really stayed put. Don't you know how to move when danger comes? However, Angelica calmly looked at Wuming. As a puppet, I have to follow orders. Looking at Angelica's serious and stubborn eyes, he felt even more helpless. Rin, help me teleport her back to the lunar temple. Wuming decisively said to the screen that was still open. Are you sure? Rin Enbin was confused. Although Rin Enbin had never seen Angelica before, she was undoubtedly an enemy. She has already died once, in Mount Yuzong. I killed her. There is no need to kill her a second time. Then, Wuming looked at Beatrice, who was thrown to the side by Shiro Amiya. When Wuming tied up Shiro Amiya and the others with Heaven Lock, Enkidu, Shiro Amiya grabbed Beatrice. Even Beatrice was taken back to the control room by the lunar temple. Even Shiro didn't kill anyone. Do I look like someone who would kill innocent people? Rin Enbin smiled awkwardly as he complained in his mind. I don't know who said that he had already killed the other party once. Yes, I understand. Rin Enbin sighed and nodded. A moment later, Angelica's body began to glow, and she was obediently teleported to the lunar temple. Then, with this, there will be no more restraints. Wuming stretched his arms and legs. The reason why everyone was teleported to the lunar temple was to prevent them from interfering with Wuming. Once again, Wuming didn't want to take over the power of others. Back then, Wuming planned to attack Darius' headquarters alone. After obtaining the power of a god, Wuming, who reached the root of his hometown, had the ability to do so. Well then, have you come out, Darius? After Wuming shouted, Darius's laughter came from the replacement space in the center of the big pit. Ha 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 ha, as expected of the legendary dragon, Lord Hyunryong, to be able to defeat all of my dolls. After saying that, Darius walked out of the hidden space and revealed himself. However, Darius was holding a little girl's hand. The black mud was produced from the little girl's body. Wuming couldn't help but frown. This girl was none other than the friend that Meiyu had happily introduced to Wuming. Erica! Meiyu exclaimed in surprise when she saw this scene through the screen that had yet to be turned off. No matter what, Erica was someone who wanted to befriend Meiyu. Even if they had become enemies for some unknown reason, Meiyu still couldn't help but worry about Erica. What's more, Erica's eyes were lifeless at the moment, like a doll's. That's what you want to say, Lord Hyunryong. Darius pretended to be elegant, although this still made Wuming nauseous. Wuming didn't say anything, but his piercing gaze still told Darius. However, Darius continued his disgusting, elegant speech as if he didn't see Wuming's cold eyes. Given everything by everyone, a body made of God's clay, a magic box with disaster and hope since birth, this is her name. Pandora, Wuming said Erica's real name. Ever since Wuming saw Pandora in school, Wuming had already seen through, guessed Erica's true identity. She was wrapped in endless darkness, but at the core, there was a glimmer of light. Coupled with the faint aura of a god's generation, Wuming wasn't 100% sure at first, but after Darius' speech, Wuming was 100% sure. Erica Ainsworth's true identity was Pandora, the magic box that contained countless disasters created by the gods in the place of the gods, the sorceress that made people sigh with pity. Now, I've finally opened Pandora's box. Ha 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 ha. It was as if Darius had realized his lifelong wish. He laughed with all his strength, and kept on laughing. Hearing this laughter and seeing this scene, Mayu, whose soul was trembling due to the influence of the black soil, became even more afraid. She took 2 shaky steps back. No. Erica, however, 2 hands pressed down on Mayu's back. The warmth from the palms caused Mayu's trembling body to stop. Mayu turned around and saw a pair of similar faces. Ilya. Little Black. Mayu said in a daze. Don't be afraid, Mayu. Ilya looked at Mayu with an unusually firm gaze. You still have us here. Little Black smiled mischievously. That's right. Rin and Osaka adjusted the glasses that he had put on at some point. Everyone is here, Mayu. Luvia looked at Mayu with a gentle smile that wasn't arrogant. Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu smiled at Mayu. Although Bazette didn't smile and had a serious expression, Mayu saw encouragement in his calm gaze. Everyone, seeing that everyone's souls were no longer trembling, Mayu was touched. Mayu-sama, please don't be discouraged. Sapphire flew into Mayu's hands at the right time. Sapphire, I understand. Mayu hugged Sapphire and nodded at everyone. Perfect. Perfect. Next, it's time to fight the Great Demon King. Ruby suddenly shouted in a high-pitched voice. Bam! Instantly, a fist sent Ruby flying. You bastard, can't you just be quiet? Rin and Osaka maintained his punching posture and said in a slightly annoyed tone. Protest. Violent protest. Ruby, who was fine, flew back and protested Rin and Osaka beside Ilya. Looks like you're itching for a beating, Ruby, hey hey. Rin and Osaka, you're finally acting like a lady. Can't you be more obedient? What did you say? I've always been a lady, okay. Seriously, why are you two fighting again? Sister too, doesn't she know how to read the atmosphere? Mama everyone, stop fighting. Senpai, you're not dignified at all. That's why, I'm really unlucky to be betrayed by the higher-ups. I can't believe that I'm working with you guys now. Mayu smiled happily as she looked at the people who were playing around. While inadvertently paying attention to the big screen, Mayu saw that Wu Ming was looking at her gently without relaxing for a moment. Feeling her beloved brother's encouraging gaze, Mayu nodded again. Collis sat on the main control platform and reported to Wu Ming. Master, the spirit world barrier has been successfully strengthened. Everyone's souls are no longer affected by the black mud. Well done, Collis. Yes, thank you for your praise. At this moment, Darius stopped laughing. Now, I don't need the Holy Grail anymore. You and the Holy Grail will be destroyed together, Hyunryong. Chapter 301. After Darius finished speaking, Erica, or rather, Pandora, whose eyes had lost consciousness, erupted with black mud all over her body. The black mud came menacingly and swallowed Darius in an instant. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The black mud that engulfed Darius began to condense into a black sphere. Inside the black sphere, Darius's wanton laughter could be heard. Immediately after, the pitch-black sphere began to vibrate, as if something was rushing out from the inside. The entire black sphere began to deform irregularly from the outside. However, how can I give you a chance? Instantly, the 2 stone plates in Wu Ming's heart lit up. I will deny the sky, deny the earth. The storm will destroy everything, and the rain will cover everything. With this supreme divine power, I will make everything in the world bow and kneel. Lightning. 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 I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with a white, 10,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me, who is on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow me with divine power. Wu Ming chanted 2 words in a row, and a raging storm enhanced by violent thunder and lightning appeared in his hand. With a violent destructive force that could destroy everything, it spun and hit the black sphere. However, Darius, who was swallowed by the black mud, was not unable to move. Kaboom! Countless black mud whips formed into countless black mud whips and bombarded the oncoming thunderstorm with violent explosions. With the supreme primordial power, I will crush all enemies and enmity from humans and demons. This is my violent incarnation. In an instant, Wyrm added the aura of the origin dragon to the thunderstorm. The black mud whips that were in a stalemate were instantly broken by the thunderstorm and bombarded the black sphere. The pitch-black sphere let out what sounded like a miserable shriek. However, Rindosaka and the others could not recognize this sound. They only felt that there was a sound. It should be said that they received the sound through their brains and not their ears. Everyone who heard this voice held their heads in pain. Wyrm said to Kalas after noticing Rin Enbin's strange behavior. Kalas, cut off the call, set up the defensive barrier, and get away from here. Yes, Master. Kalas immediately cut off the sound transmission on both sides of the screen. Following that, Kalas also set up a barrier in the lunar palace to prevent the voice from reaching everyone's minds. She then operated the lunar palace to leave this place. After they could no longer hear anything, their expressions gradually turned for the better. Will Wyrm be alright by himself? The recovered Rin asked Kalas. The others also looked at Kalas with concern, waiting for her answer. Master's hypostasis is at the pinnacle of existence. His mind and soul won't be affected, Kalas replied. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. What about his body? Mayu suddenly said. Brother Wyrm's current body is not his original body. It's just the body of a servant. Can the enemy affect Brother Wyrm's body? Answer me, Kalas. Mayu looked at Kalas with some seriousness. When Mayu said this, everyone reacted. Yes, Wyrm said that he was not dead, and his body was not here. His current body was just the body of a servant, which was a body made of magical power. Although this body was extremely powerful for ordinary people, for an enemy of that level, I'm afraid, Mayu just looked at Kelly and didn't move a single step. If it's the body, the enemy can indeed affect the master. After a moment of silence, Kalas answered Mayu's question. Then what is Brother Wyrm's chance of winning? Mayu continued to ask. After all, Kalas is a magic dress, and the calculation of the winning rate can naturally be analyzed. However, Kalas did not speak again. According to the comparison of the current strength of Black Clay and Master Wyrm, the result of the calculation is that the winning rate is only less than 5%. At this time, Sapphire, who had been serving Mayu, calculated the result. What? How can it be so low? Everyone was surprised. After all, it was Wyrm who took the initiative to attack Ainsworth. As for the information, Wyrm should have collected it. No matter how stupid Wyrm was, he would not fight an unprepared war. Then isn't Big Brother in danger? Let's hurry and save him. Ilya said in a panic, and then ran out. However, Blackie pulled Ilya back. What are you doing, little Black? Don't stop me. Ilya, calm down. Even if you go, you won't be able to do anything. The difference in strength is too great. Little Black shook his head and said calmly. That's right, Ilya. Little Black is right. I don't have the confidence to defeat that sphere. Ruby said while floating beside Ilya. But, are we just going to watch Big Brother like this? Ilya shook her head sadly. Everyone did not speak, and they all became silent. Sapphire's calculation of the winning rate is only for the previous master. The current master is no longer the same as before. At this time, Kalas suddenly spoke. What do you mean? Luvia took a step forward and looked at Kalas. Actually, Master killed a god in another world and seized the god's power. As soon as Alice's words left her mouth, everyone was immediately stunned. But thinking about Wyrm's identity, everyone was relieved. By the way, isn't Big Brother originally a god? Ilya, who did not understand anything, asked. Of course not, Ilya. Wuming appeared as a fantasy breed in Mesopotamia's mythology. Although he's a god in name, he's not the same as a god, Rin and Osaka said. Legend has it that Hyunryong is the son of the Mesopotamia's god of creation, Tiamat. He's the closest to Tiamat, and he's even the highest fantasy breed that surpasses Tiamat. In other words, Big Brother isn't a god, right? Little Black concluded. Actually, Master was born from the origin. What? Everyone was truly surprised by Alice's words. Unfortunately, Ilya still didn't understand. That. Ilya smiled embarrassedly and looked at everyone. The origin is the origin of all things, the cause and effect of all things, the origin of all things, the ultimate truth. Rin and Osaka's explanation left Ilya dumbfounded. Simply put, without the origin, there would be no world, and there would be no us, Little Black said simply. I see. But if that's the case, aren't we also born from the origin? Ilya was confused again. We're different. Although there would be no us without the origin, we weren't born from the origin. You can understand that we're the infinite differentiation of things born from the origin, and were finally formed, Livia explained. Wuming, on the other hand, was born directly from the origin. His status is comparable to the two great restraints. That. What's restraints? Ilya was embarrassed. She really did not know anything. Forget it. Next time, I'll give you a good all-around lesson. Rin and Osaka sighed and then shook his head helplessly. Actually, Master wasn't born from the origin of this world. Instead, he was born from a place of a higher status. A higher status? Everyone was confused. I feel so embarrassed. Alright then, even Ilya wanted to cry. Even the others didn't know about this, so there was no way she would know about it. Chapter 302. Did you know that there are other worlds outside this world? Kalis said in detail. It seems that you're not talking about parallel worlds. Rin and Osaka touched his chin and said thoughtfully. When Rin and Osaka said that, the others frowned thoughtfully. That was what people often did when they were thinking. What do you mean? Well, this time it was Ilya again. Ilya had already closed her eyes in fright. Ilya basically didn't understand what everyone was saying. Now, Ilya felt that she had lost her face to the limit. Everything in the world is born from the root, and naturally, there can be more than one world. And where do these different worlds come from? It's the place called the Great Root. The Great Root. Everyone repeated Kalis's words and thought carefully. Master is the existence born from the Great Root, the legendary dragon, the Root Dragon. Doesn't that mean that Wuming's level is higher than the suppression power? Rin and Osaka exclaimed. In short, that's right. After Kalis said that, everyone became nervous again. But. Kalis paused for a moment after finishing her sentence. Master, as the Root Dragon, is not yet an adult, and because of some accident, Master did not absorb power from the Great Root after he was born, but was forced to leave the Great Root. Therefore, Master is not that powerful. Since Kalis became Wuming's noble phantasm, she became the owner of Wuming's existence, and she knew about Wuming's origin and life. Although most of it was from Wuming and Kalis when they were chatting. Wuming told Kalis that it was not a secret, and although it was not necessary to be too secretive, it was better not to tell others. For Rin and Osaka and the others, Kalis judged that they were already regarded as trustworthy partners, so she told them those things. Everyone also understood that Kalis trusted them by telling them such a mysterious secret. Naturally, they would not do anything to leak it. After a long period of silence, Livia suddenly spoke. The accident you mentioned, could it be related to the black mud? Livia is right. That's very possible. In comparison, Wuming is a little too obsessed with the black mud, Rin and Ben agreed. Everyone, including Meiyu, couldn't help but ponder. Everyone, including Meiyu, had an expression that said, "It seems to be true." After all, no matter how one looked at it, Wuming was too obsessed with the black mud. Whether it was Wuming's understanding of the black mud or his expression when he talked about it as if he was facing a great enemy, it all showed how much he cared about the black mud. Although there were 2 reasons to eliminate Ainsworth to prevent them from being a threat to Meiyu, and Wuming himself saying that how could he not return the favor after being beaten up. However, Wuming gave everyone the feeling that he was extremely obsessed with the black mud. Rin, if you think about it carefully, Big Brother is really too obsessed with the black mud. Little Black frowned. Everyone looked at Collis. However, Collis didn't intend to explain. Regarding this point, let's wait for Master to return victorious and let Master tell you personally. Then, Collis fell into silence. Look! Ilya pointed at the screen that was still open and exclaimed in surprise. Everyone looked at the screen. On the screen, the black ball that was hit by Wuming's thunderstorm had turned into a headless giant. No, it was not headless. The head of the giant was Darius, but because it was too small, it was unclear. The scene shifted to the scene. Wuming looked at the black mud amalgamation that did not disappear after receiving Wuming's full force attack and turned into a giant. It turns out that all the disasters inside Pandora's box have been transformed into this black mud. Wuming clearly recognized that the black mud was the mud-like substance that Wuming saw inside the big root. Those mud-like substances seemed solid, but in fact, they were some gas. A large amount of black mist condensed into a mud-like black mist amalgamation. And now, the black mud giant in front of him was a new substance born from the combination of the black mist and the disaster substance in Pandora's box. It looked like some sticky black mud, but that black mud had the power of the root. The root was the origin of all things, and naturally, it was also the origin of bad things, and naturally, it also had bad power. However, that was not correct. There was no good or bad power, only the person who used the power could distinguish the good from the bad. For example, if Wuming was a heinous criminal, then Wuming's power was the source of evil. However, Wuming, who chose to stand on the good side, had the power of light. It could only be said that the black mud was just a new substance produced by the fusion of countless disasters in Pandora's box and the unknown black mist with the power of the root. How is it, Hyunryong, this is the eternal, this is the root. Darius, who was at the top of the black mud giant, laughed crazily again. But soon, Darius stopped, as if he had changed from a neurotic to a sage. Oh, right, I almost forgot, you were also born from there. How could you not know? I'm sorry, Root Dragon. Saying so, Darius smiled warmly. However, Wuming's eyes shrank sharply when he heard that sentence. But soon, Wuming was relieved. So that's how it is. Did the black mud tell you? Wuming immediately guessed how Darius knew his identity. The black mud had the power of the root. The black mud and Darius merged together, and the two resonated like symbiotic entities. The black mud knew Wuming's identity, although it did not have any self-consciousness. At least, that was what Wuming saw at the moment. In this way, Darius, who had merged with the black mud, naturally knew Wuming's identity. However, this made Wuming begin to doubt whether these natural enemies of Wuming had self-consciousness. Not here, it did not mean that there were none in other worlds. At least, Wuming did not think that these actions, which came from the same root as Wuming, could not travel between worlds. It would be terrible if some people with high authority were to combine with the black mud. Don't worry, Lord Root Dragon, these black mud do not have self-consciousness, Darius suddenly said. Wuming frowned. Did Darius see through his thoughts? I saw your identity by accident when I was fusing with them. No one told me about it. On the surface, Wuming still had a frown on his face, but in fact, he was relieved in his heart. Although my wish has almost been fulfilled, Lord Root Dragon, I am a little interested in your birthplace, the Big Root. Wuming's frown became more obvious, and Darius became more abnormal. I don't know why, but I'm eager to return to home now, Root Dragon. Be devoured by me, and return to the big root with me. Chapter 303. After swearing his oath, Darius began his so-called devouring of Wyrm. One after another, tentacle-like mud whips stretched out from the black mud all over the big holes, constantly attacking Wyrm. Swish, 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 Wyrm dodged the tentacles that stretched out from the black mud on the ground one after another and looked at Darius, who had become neither human nor ghost. At this moment, Darius' lower body was in the headless mud giant's body, and his upper body was still wearing a thin black shirt. However, the skin on his exposed arms had begun to turn dark. The black substance covered Darius's body, forming a pattern that looked uncomfortable. Darius looked at Wyrm with his black-red eyes. Okay, dragon of origin, don't resist anymore, quickly become one with me. After dodging a few more black mud whips, Wyrm shook his head as he looked at Darius. It's hopeless, his soul has been completely eroded. Since many years ago, Darius had been using substitution magic to transfer his personality and soul to the next generation of his descendants. Since then, Darius's soul had become broken. So far, although Darius himself said that he had become eternal, Wyrm, who was no stranger to this black mud, could easily see that Darius' soul had been completely eroded. It was completely eroded by the fusion of disaster and the black fog in Pandora's box. In that case, I don't need to show mercy, Wyrm said indifferently. Ha! Ha 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 ha, show mercy. Are you kidding? Dragon of origin, Darius began to laugh when he heard Wyrm's words. If you're talking about the power of origin that restrains each other, then don't bother. With this Pandora's box in hand, these tools can be said to be endless. Do you understand? Darius's tone was abnormal. Moreover, like a French marshal, Darius's eyes began to bulge. I don't need to use up all of your black mud. Just capture the leader first. Wyrm's golden eyes slowly lit up as he stared at Darius as if he was looking at a dead object. This gaze made Darius a little afraid. What a joke. Didn't you say you couldn't use your noble artifact? If you can summon your true body, then I might be a little afraid. But you can't summon your true body. You can't fight me at all. Darius almost roared to hide his fear. After dodging a few more black mud whips, Wyrm closed his eyes. After this, Wyrm was entangled by the black mud whips. It seems that you know that I have returned to my origin. Indeed, my true body can no longer be summoned by a mere servant, and other noble artifacts won't be of much use to you. To put it simply, this caster, magician, profession won't work on you, but, after that, Wyrm's closed eyes suddenly opened, and Wyrm's body exuded a golden holy light. At the same time, the huge dragon body that was sleeping inside the root suddenly emitted a special light from the dragon horn. It was also at this moment that some of the black mist inside the root rushed toward the light. In front of the dragon body, a space-time portal was opened, and the light broke the seal of the black mist and entered the space-time portal. Then, the space-time portal disappeared. The black mist that didn't succeed in organizing went crazy and began to wreak havoc on the huge dragon body. However, countless holy light and thunder burst out in an instant, vaporizing the black mud. The scene changed, and above Wyrm, who was entangled, a space-time portal suddenly opened, and a huge golden beam of light descended in an instant, enveloping Wyrm. The beam of light vaporized the black mud whips that entangled Wyrm in an instant. I didn't say that my true body can't interfere with this servant's spiritual base. Like a god descending, Wyrm's entire body was shrouded in the golden beam of light. His white clothes fluttered in the wind, and his golden hair fluttered wantonly. His two bright golden eyes shone even brighter. This is... Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell, go to hell. Darius was stunned at first, then roared wildly, driving the headless mud giant toward Wyrm, and the black mud in the big pit quickly gathered in the direction of Wyrm. The black mud hit the golden beam of light like waves, but the golden beam of light was like a stubborn stone on the coast, it couldn't be destroyed. Instead, the black mud that came into contact with the golden beam of light began to burn, emitting light smoke. An existence that specifically targets the malignant tumor of your world, servant, savior, descends here. Wuming, who was inside the beam of light, declared. When the beam of light disappeared, Wuming's outfit changed. The original short golden hair turned into short black hair, and the golden pupils turned into red pupils. However, the pure white clothes didn't change much, but there was a layer of golden lines on the white robe. The golden lines emitted light, illuminating the earth, looking extremely mysterious. Wuming's current appearance can be said to be exactly the same as his true body in human form. Then, the black mud that was illuminated by the golden light began to emit green smoke, like a necrotic creature, shrinking and disappearing. This power. Could it be? Darius couldn't believe it. That's right, Darius. This power is the origin power. Wuming raised a hand, and a ball of golden particles attached to it. Do you think you can win like this? Don't forget, I have the origin power too. As he said that, Darius also raised his hand like Wuming. Black particles materialized and attached to it. Wuming naturally understood what Darius meant. The origin power did not have a fixed form. The two's powers were different only because Darius's origin power was attached to the black mud, while Wuming's origin power was a natural ability obtained by Wuming who was in the origin power. They were powers of the same origin, but they were also powers that countered each other. This was also the reason why Darius did not retreat even though he panicked. But, Darius, do you think I changed my spiritual base just for the origin power? Wuming smiled. Wuming used his true body in the Great Origin not just to change Castor's spiritual base into Savior's spiritual base. Haven't you noticed that the world is rejecting you now? Chapter 304. After Wuming said this, Darius also felt it. He now felt that the whole world was rejecting him. Just like material evolution, the earth, the sky, the flowers, the air, everything became harmful to Darius. It was not that it became something else, but it became an additional attribute, Darius poison. Just like how humans could not adapt to the air on Mars, Darius gradually began to be unable to adapt to the environment on Earth. What's going on? Darius felt his body begin to decay and immediately began to wrap his body with the power of the source. It could only be said that the power of the source was somewhat of a cheat. Almost everything was restrained by it. After all, it was the origin of everything. And only the power of the source could restrain the power of the source. It's actually very simple. I just added an ability to my spiritual base. Wuming kindly explained to Darius. Nemesis of evil EX, Savior is righteous. Once identified by the Savior as evil, and their actions have an impact on the world, they will be counterattacked by the power of the world of the same level. The degree of the counterattack is enough to kill and cause fatal effects. You are the guy who absorbed all the disasters in Pandora's box. As an existence that brings disaster to the world will give you the same punishment. Wuming smiled. Don't be surprised. For me, who is in the source, changing the rank of a mere clone servant is not difficult. Moreover, with my identity, even if I tell Gaia and Alea, I can change my rank at will. Just think of it as me cheating to save effort, the disaster of the world. Wuming's series of words stunned Darius. Then, Darius began to laugh. Ha 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 ha. Covering his black and red eyes, Darius laughed wildly. Then, as long as I devour your clone, I will leave this world. That's it. Darius stared at Wuming as if he was looking at a delicacy. Then I will go to the source and devour your body. That way, I will be a god. A true god. However, Wuming scoffed at Darius's words. If not for the fact that his main body still needed to draw power from the root, it would not have been difficult for Silent's main body to find the black mud that had fused with the black mist in Pandora's box even if he could not easily find it. Moreover, if Darius really did go to the root, then he would definitely die without leaving a trace. With the origin dragon and the great origin, how could a mere world's calamity cause any trouble? Then, I'll let you die in peace, Darius. After saying that, Wyrm began to chant the spirit words. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now, I will obtain the majesty of 10 mountains, the strength of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. What the majestic me raises is the ferocious dragon mark. Instantly, Wyrm's body emitted a bright light. Die. At that moment, Darius' attack arrived. A huge black mud palm instantly grabbed Wyrm. Countless black mud that contained origin power surged toward Wyrm from the black mud giant's arm that grabbed Wyrm. But, pfft! Wyrm struggled to break the hand that grabbed him. Don't underestimate the power of the dragon seed. Dragons, no matter which country it was, or which myth it was, were all powerful existences. As the origin dragon, Wyrm's main body was naturally powerful. Compared to being a spellcaster, Wyrm was more suited to be a warrior. This was a God-given ability bestowed by Wyrm's main body. A powerful body and a powerful spiritual base brought about unparalleled power. As for the dragon seed incarnation, it was purely to enhance Wyrm's physical attributes. Whether it was strength, speed, durability, magic power, spirit power, resistance, etc., all of his attributes were increased. Coupled with the boundless origin power in his body, Wyrm's contact with the black mud was as easy as cutting through paper with a sharp blade. I am the strongest and the one who holds all victory in my hands. No matter if it's a human or a demon, I am the one who defeats all enemies' hostility. I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. As the words were uttered, a golden dragon-shaped giant that was the same size as the black mud giant appeared. Bang, bang, the golden dragon-shaped giant threw 2 punches. The black mud giant was unable to defend against these mutually reinforcing attacks. The black mud giant's body was instantly shattered. It's not over yet. I won't lose. Darius roared, and the black mud giant that had been scattered instantly recovered. Immediately after, the black mud giant hugged the golden dragon-shaped giant. Countless black mud rushed toward the golden dragon-shaped giant. After all, the dragon-shaped giant was instantly dissolved. Wyrm came out of the golden dragon-shaped giant's body before the black mud covered the golden dragon-shaped giant. Wyrm looked at the disappearing golden dragon-shaped giant in the air and felt a little helpless. That's why this kind of mutual restraint is really a headache. It wasn't that Silent Wonder couldn't win. Rather, it was as if the two of them were mutually damaging each other. Both of them had attributes that countered each other. Silent Wonder, who had many trump cards, would only find it slightly more difficult to win. Soon, Wyrm's expression turned into a smile. However, this is also the reason why I'm changing my class. That's right. In order to avoid trouble, Wyrm used the world's power and used Bane of Evil EX to constantly destroy Darius's black mud giant body. Boom! The black mud giant was about to fall apart, and Darius's face was also ugly. While maintaining the world's resistance, he also had to fight against the power that restrained him. It was inevitable for Darius, who had just fused with the black mud giant, to struggle. As if he had guessed his fate, Darius roared in despair. Why? I've spent 1,000 years. Finally, I opened Pandora's box, and I gained supreme power. I gained immortality. Why did you appear? Looking at Darius like this, Wyrm chuckled. Without me, your plan wouldn't have succeeded. Let's not talk about Gaia, even Alea would have stopped you. Without Wyrm, Zelik wouldn't have saved the world. Regardless of what happened to the earth, human beings were doomed to destruction, and Alea, as a human consciousness, must eliminate the scourge that led to the destruction of human beings. In addition, there was another reason why Darius was doomed to fail. For victory, come to me quickly. Immortal son, please give me a shining steed. Horses with enough intelligence, bring me the light will that symbolizes your master. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me with wings. My wings will bring you a curse. Evil people won't be able to hit me. Wyrm condensed a sun in his palm and slammed the small condensed sun into the black mud giant's chest at lightning speed. Boom! Instantly, the black clay giant's chest exploded. What was revealed wasn't a hole, but Erica, or Pandora. At this moment, Pandora was wearing a thin black dress, with long hair like a noble lady. Her eyes were closed, and her hands were hugging her legs. But strangely, Pandora's body was constantly emitting light, which was the hope that restrained all the disasters in Pandora's box. Now, do you understand, Darius? The Pandora's box that released all the disasters is only left with hope, the hope to save humanity. Chapter 305. As if responding to Wyrm's words, Pandora responded to my body and emitted some strange light. The light wrapped around the black mud giant, and the black mud giant made a sound. How is this possible? A mere box is actually my nemesis. I have been planning this for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Darius roared madly, like the last roar of a trapped beast before its death. It was so miserable that it made people sympathize with him. Being suppressed by the world, his body was basically composed of the disaster in Pandora's box, suppressed by the hope in Pandora's box. At present, the only thing that could work was Wyrm's source power. Why do you think Pandora's box appeared? Crisis and hope coexist. Now, take this despair back to the source. For victory, come to me. Immortal sun, please give me a shining steed. O spirited horse, with the lifeline of my origin dragon, I bestow upon the eternal glory. Bring me the wheel of light that symbolizes me. On the stone plate in Wyrm's heart, two simple pointers pointed to the stone plate with the sun. With the stone plate emitting a red light, the immortal sun attached to Wyrm's body. The sun incarnation not only had the ability to summon the sun, but also the ability to turn Wyrm himself into the sun. Wyrm used the sun incarnation attached to his body, ignited an endless golden sun flame, and burned the black mud giant. Darius may have made a mournful scream, but Wyrm's ears were filled with the sound of burning flames, and there was no room for other sounds. Accompanied by the burning flames, countless rays of the sun blocked everything, and by the way, it set off a solar storm. The solar storm blew the Shua Moon Temple in the distance, but soon, the Shua Moon Temple stabilized. All the people in the Shua Moon Temple were in disarray. Rin stood up, patted her skirt, and looked at everyone. Is everyone alright? Ilya rubbed her head in a daze and looked at Mayu who was supporting her, as well as Blackie who was being supported by Sakura Madu. She smiled embarrassedly. He's fine, probably. Seriously, what on earth did Wyrm do? Luvia grumbled. Making a lady fall was not something a gentleman would do, let alone Wyrm. Look at the screen. Bazette pointed at the screen that was originally used to communicate with Wyrm. At this moment, the screen had turned white. The people in the lunar temple looked at the screen that had turned white and felt the violent tremors just now. They fell into deep shock. Then, the virtual screen dimmed like a TV that had its power cut off. This should be Big Brother's magic power messing up the screen's magic power reception. I'm afraid that Big Brother's surroundings have become unsuitable for modern people to live in a magic power environment. No matter what, Shiro Amiya was someone who had received special training in the clock tower. He was able to analyze this phenomenon. At this moment, Ilya spoke carefully. Big Brother, Ilya was not the only one. Almost everyone present was paying attention to Wyrm's situation. Although everyone believed in Wyrm's strength very much, at this moment where the outcome could not be determined, everyone's mood was still very uneasy. This was especially so for Mayu. At this moment, Mayu's expression had turned very pale due to worry. Master has won. There's no doubt about it. Colos's cold voice sounded. It was unusually simple and clear. However, everyone felt that this voice was filled with joy. Collis's words caused everyone to sigh in relief. Mayo's helpless expression turned warm. Then, can't we immediately go to Big Brother's side? Ilya asked. After all, Shiro Amiya had already said that Wuming's surroundings might have become unsuitable for modern people to live in. The lunar temple can adapt to almost any environment. As long as you don't go out, you won't be affected, Collis explained. Then, everyone looked at each other and nodded. Then, as the captain of the lunar temple, I'll go to the big crater at full speed in the name of the lunar temple. Rin Enbin said in a pretentious manner. Surprisingly, Luvia did not refute Rin Enbin this time. Well, I'll let you be in the limelight. In the corner, Beatrice hugged her legs in fear. Her face was buried between her legs as she sat on the ground. Because the impact of the solar storm just now happened to wake Beatrice up. It seemed that because she did not have a rank card, Beatrice appeared to be quite weak at the moment. Angelica stood where she was as obedient as ever. Even the solar storm just now had not been able to make this puppet, who had mastered displacement magic, lose her composure. Angelica looked at the excitement and joy on everyone's faces. She couldn't wait to meet Wuming and closed her eyes. So boring. Angelica said softly. However, this sentence was full of envy. In the big crater, the light that almost covered the entire Winterwood city dissipated, revealing a scene that looked like it had been scorched by the sun. Yes, there was no magma everywhere, nor was there a piece of the earth dug out. It was just the scene of the earth being scorched by the sun for a long time. The only difference was that the originally pitch-black mud had completely disappeared. Wuming stood in the big crater with a person in his arms and another person lying next to him. Erica, who was in Wuming's arms, seemed to have fallen asleep. She lay in Wuming's arms peacefully. Her little head moved unconsciously, and vague sounds came from her mouth. Erica, or rather, Pandora, because the countless disasters in Pandora's box had left the box and merged with Darius. Therefore, Pandora could be said to be completely harmless. Because there was no need to kill her, Wuming saved her. After all, she was a great hero who helped Wuming defeat Darius. As for the person lying next to Wuming, if Shiro Amiya was here, he would be very shocked. The person lying next to Wuming was Julian Ainsworth. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Julian, who had been completely replaced by Darius, to reappear. However, because his soul had fused with the black mud, Darius had left Julian's body. Julian, who was originally unconscious in the black mud, was discovered when Wuming defeated Darius. Thinking that it was easy, Wuming saved Julian. As for why Erica was in his arms, and Julian was lying down, Wuming expressed that Julian was a big man, and it was not as comfortable as Erica, who was a little girl. This is... Julian opened his eyes slowly. Because the sun was too bright, Julian subconsciously used his hand to block the sunlight. You're awake. Wuming's voice came from the side. Hearing Wuming's voice, Julian's pupils shrank. Chapter 306. Julian's eyes were a little shocked, but he soon recovered. Darius was defeated. Julian said calmly. From his voice, Wuming could feel a trace of hope. Ah, yes, including the soul, he was completely defeated. Wuming turned his head to look in the direction of the sun and said with a smile. The suppression of the world, the hope in Pandora's box, and Wuming's source power combined these three forces. Darius's wish was completely shattered. Darius and the black mud were all burned clean by Wuming's sun. Why did you save me? Suddenly, Julian asked. I didn't want to save you. You saved yourself, Wuming retorted. If it were someone else, even if I killed Darius, his original personality would not reappear. Although Darius said that you have been completely replaced by him, from the looks of it, you should have resisted Darius's replacement magic with your strong spirit. Wuming turned his head to look at Julian. Julian was silent, which meant that he acquiesced. I've done a little research on the Ainsworth family's replacement magic. It's already shocking for an average person to be able to hold on for more than 10 days without being completely replaced. You actually managed to hold on for years with your own willpower. It's really rare. Because Darius set the replacement magic on his descendants, Darius would start to replace the personality of a random person in each generation every time after a certain period of time, making himself immortal in a sense. Because this was a curse engraved in the soul, many descendants of Ainsworth had no way to come into contact with it. It must be said that Darius's replacement magic was really powerful. Each replacement only took a few days, and the replaced personality would become Darius, who retained his previous memories. Julian, who could continue to not be replaced, could be said to have extremely strong willpower. You can now live without any direction. Darius will no longer switch to your body. Now, Darius, whose soul and personality had fused with the black mud, was mentally destroyed by Wyrm. Even if the curse was still engraved in Aria's soul, the curse would break on its own without the crucial replacement. After Wyrm finished speaking, Julian fell silent. "Thank you, Hyunryong." Then, Julian thanked Wyrm in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. "So, is there anything you want to do as the head of the Ainsworth family that is free from Darius' control?" Wyrm suddenly said. "You have been hostile to Erica from the beginning. Although I don't know why you are so against Erica, for the sake of the future, please tell me the reason," Wyrm said in a tone that brooked no refusal, and then looked at Julian coldly. Julian glared back at Wyrm, not to be outdone. It had to be said that Julian was indeed a ruthless person who could resist Darius without being replaced. This is the cause of all the disasters of the Ainsworth family. Keeping her is also a disaster, Julian said with an unhappy expression. "But no matter what, she is still your sister, isn't she?" Wyrm did not believe that Julian would not have any sibling feelings for Erica. At this point, Julian fell silent. Wyrm chuckled when he saw this, then said, "You don't have to worry about Pandora's box. Darius and the calamities in Pandora's box have all been wiped out by me. Even the hope left in Pandora's box has been exhausted in the final battle just now. Right now, Pandora's box is already empty." Wyrm looked at Erica in his arms after saying that. The gods that have disappeared can no longer place disasters and hope in it. You should take up the responsibility of an older brother. With that, Wyrm waited for Julian's reply. After hearing Wyrm's words, Julian looked at Erica in Wyrm's arms and fell into deep thought. However, no matter what, Julian was not a bad person. Otherwise, Shiro Amiya would not have become friends with him. Soon, Julian figured it out. "I understand, Hyunryong." Julian nodded at Wyrm. Then, he took the sleeping Erica from Wyrm's arms. Wyrm was not worried that Julian would lie to him. A person like Julian would not stoop to lying to Wyrm in order to kill Erica. This was a matter of principle. Julian carried Erica and walked out of the crater. After taking a few steps, Julian turned his head and looked at Wyrm. "I will contact the clock tower to explain. By the way, I will be responsible for repairing this crater. Leave the clock tower to me. You can be an ordinary high school student." Wyrm waved his hand. Then, Wyrm laughed mischievously. "By the way, you have been absent from school for a long time for no reason. Do you need me to contact the school for you? I have some power in Winterwood City." As soon as Wyrm said that, Julian's face darkened. He turned and left. Just like that, Wyrm watched as Julian left the crater and entered the forest at the edge of the crater. At this moment, a virtual screen suddenly appeared beside Wyrm. "Great, Wyrm, I finally got in touch with you." Rin Enbin on the other side of the screen heaved a sigh of relief. Because they had managed to contact Wyrm, the three little Lolas were a little excited. They made a fuss on the other side of the screen, causing the screen to be a little abnormal. After hearing Rin Enbin's words, Wyrm realized the problem. Because of the sudden increase in the concentration of mana around the crater and the distance between them, the lunar temple signal could not reach Wyrm for a while. When the lunar temple arrived near the crater, they finally managed to contact Wyrm. As for Wuming's position in the crater, the concentration of mana was normal. This was because Erica and Julian were here. Wuming pushed the high-purity mana in the crater out of the crater. Otherwise, Julian would not have been able to talk to Wuming so calmly. *T. Wuming instantly realized that Julian would be eroded by the high-density mana after leaving the crater. Well, think about it. Julian was still fine after being replaced for so long. A little high-density mana shouldn't be a threat to him, probably. Wuming smiled awkwardly as he thought to himself. Speaking of which, where's that black mud guy? Wuming, did you destroy him? After adjusting the screen, Rin Enben's face reappeared on the screen. Don't worry. The enemy is completely destroyed. There's no more danger. Wuming smiled. Big brother. Suddenly, Little Black's voice came from afar. Wuming turned around and saw Little Black, Ilya, and Meiyu running toward him in their transformed forms. They were clamoring to see you, so I teleported them down. Rin Enben smiled awkwardly. Really? Wuming shook his head helplessly. When Meiyu and the others were teleported down, it must have happened when the screen was abnormal. Fortunately, Rin Enben teleported inside the crater and not outside. Otherwise, it would have been dangerous. You sent them down so hastily. Aren't you afraid that the enemy isn't dead yet? Ahahaha. You're here. Rin Enben also realized this problem and smiled awkwardly. Ignoring Rin Enben, Wuming turned around and looked at Meiyu and the others running toward them. Big brother. Brother Wuming. Ilya and Meiyu also shouted one after another. Wuming smiled as he squatted down and opened his arms. When they were about to reach Wuming, Meiyu suddenly sped up and instantly overtook Little Black and Ilya. She ran to the front and jumped into Wuming's arms. Ah! Meiyu, how can you do this? Meiyu cheated. Little Black and Ilya pouted as they looked at Meiyu in Wuming's arms. However, the two of them only complained and did not do anything else. Brother Wuming. Thank you. Thank you. Meiyu shed tears of joy as she leaned into Wuming's arms. Silly. You're my sister. You don't have to thank me, Wuming smiled gently as he placed his chin on Meiyu's head and comforted Meiyu. Brother Wuming. I like you the most. The sun shone on the siblings, and Little Black and Ilya saw a beautiful scene. They couldn't recover from their daze for a long time. Chapter 307. Wuming didn't let Rin and Osaka land the lunar temple. Instead, he let Rin and Osaka drive the lunar temple back to the lunar mansion. After expelling all the high-density mana, Wuming brought Meiyu, Ilya, and Blackie back to the lunar mansion. At this time, Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu were already in the kitchen preparing a celebratory feast. Rin and Osaka and Luvia, on the other hand, looked like they couldn't take it anymore. They were lying on the table, unable to get up. Don't think that the magic workshop of the gods was easy to operate. Without enough life force, there was no way to operate it. Fortunately, the two of them looked like they just ran a marathon and were completely exhausted. By the way, if it wasn't for the large amount of mana that Wuming injected into the lunar temple and the help of Kalis, Rin and Osaka and Luvia would have been bedridden for 10 days if they were lucky. If they were lucky, they might have died. After all, the bodies of modern people and kamikaze people were different. Kamikaze people who could adapt to the high-density mana air were much stronger than modern people. Because he didn't want other people to participate, Wuming originally planned to let one of his clones control the lunar temple. Because of this, the lunar temple was designed according to Wuming himself. It was already a big surprise that modern people like Rin and Osaka and Luvia could control it. I feel like we've been tricked by you, Wuming. Luvia said weakly. I feel the same. Rin and Osaka weakly said 2 words and then stopped moving. You two insisted on coming. If I don't give you some work to do, it would be rude of me. Wuming smiled as he replied to Rin and Osaka and Livia. However, no matter how you looked at it, Wuming's smile contained a sense of evil. Well, that's good. You two just lie there and don't cause any trouble. Blackie crossed his arms and looked at Rin and Osaka and Livia with a gloating expression. Damn it, wait for me to get up, see if I... Then, the two of them didn't even have the strength to say anything. Sister Rin and Sister Livia, are they really okay? As expected of Ilya, she was still worried about the two of them. Don't worry, I've injected them with life-sustaining medicine when they weren't paying attention. Kalis suddenly appeared in front of everyone. While speaking, Kelly used her dragon horn as her hand and shook the syringe that had no trace of medicine left. Ahaha! Ilya laughed helplessly. Magic costumes liked stabbing people with syringes. Putting away the syringe, Kelly floated to the front of Wu Ming and said softly in a voice different from the cold voice she used to talk to others. Master, I'm back. Wu Ming didn't know where Kalis got such information from. After Kalis finished speaking, Wu Ming was stunned. But Wu Ming reacted instantly. He extended his hand. Welcome back, Kalis. Also, you've worked hard. Kalis flew to his hand. Wu Ming put Kalis on his head. Although Kalis didn't say anything, Wu Ming had a feeling that Kalis was happy. I'm going to cook. Since the two of you are like this, you won't be able to eat my cooking. What a pity. Otherwise, I won't cook. As soon as Wu Ming said this, Rin Enbin and Livia seemed to have regained their senses before death as they abruptly climbed up. Wait. No matter what, we're the ones who contributed. It's not too much to ask for a meal in return. After all, it's the result of your hard work. You should at least try it. Rin and Osaka and Livia spoke rather elegantly. They didn't look like they were half dead from lying on the table a moment ago. Mayu, Lil, Hey, and Ilya smiled awkwardly. By the way, I'm also looking forward to Big Brother's cooking, Ilya smiled sweetly. I agree, Lil, Hey said. Brother Wu Ming. Mayu looked at Wu Ming with anticipation. Yes, I'll cook when I get back. You guys look forward to it. Bazette, take care of them, Wu Ming said to Bazette who was sitting on the sofa. Bazette looked like the sky was falling. To be honest, she wasn't good at dealing with children. But in order to pay for her trip home, Bazette nodded. Yes. Then, Wu Ming looked at Angelica and Beatrice who hadn't said anything. You two come with me, Wu Ming said calmly. Then, he walked out of the room. Angelica followed them obediently, but Beatrice looked scared. Beatrice had no choice but to follow him. Leaving behind the dumbfounded Mayu, Ilya, Lil, Hey, and Rin Enbin and Livia who were half dead again. When they came to the courtyard, Wu Ming stopped and turned to look at the two. I'm not a bad person. You don't have to be so scared. Wu Ming looked at the scared Beatrice and said. Yes. Beatrice replied stutteringly. After a pause, Wu Ming said. I want to tell you two things. The first thing is that Darius is dead. As soon as he finished, Angelica and Beatrice's eyes suddenly shrank. Obviously, they couldn't believe this sentence. Looking at the two's disbelieving eyes, Wu Ming continued. Don't doubt it. I've already wiped him out completely. In other words, you're all free now. Angelica and Beatrice came back to their senses and believed this conclusion for the time being. Then, did Master Julian also? Beatrice asked softly. This is the second thing I want to say. I saved Julian. After Wu Ming finished speaking, he began to observe the expressions of the two. Beatrice had a great expression. From her eyes, Wu Ming could see that Beatrice had special feelings for Julian. Angelica, on the other hand, still looked indifferent. Then, what I want to ask is, do you want to return to Julian, the current head of Ainsworth, or do you want to leave Ainsworth and start a new life, or do you want to leave this body of a puppet? Although both of them were puppets and dead people, Wu Ming didn't feel that they couldn't live a new life as puppets. Playing with souls was something that Wuming was ashamed of, but for people who had returned to the ground and weren't unforgivable, Wuming would still let them choose their own future. Life or death, it was up to them. Chapter 308. I want to go back to Julian, Sama. Beatrice said eagerly. Wuming thought it was quite rare. It seemed to be the first time Beatrice dared to speak loudly to Wuming. Wuming nodded. Of course, I can help you contact Julian, or you can find him yourself, but Julian is definitely not in Ainsworth Castle in Winterwood City. Even if you want to find him, you may not be able to find him. I advise you to stay here first. Wuming checked Ainsworth Castle. Because of Darius' death, the whole castle turned into rocks. It turned out that Ainsworth Castle was the result of Darius using displacement magic to replace the rocky mountain. As soon as Darius died, Ainsworth Castle naturally changed back to its original appearance. As Wuming said, Julian would not go back there. Moreover, although Beatrice could leave alone, Beatrice may not be able to find Julian. After all, Beatrice no longer had a class card, and she could not protect herself in the face of danger. As a result, Wuming felt a little guilty for letting a little girl wander around. Wuming would not return the class card to Beatrice. Not to mention that Beatrice had used the class card for a long time, her spirit and personality were somewhat abnormal. If he returned the class card to Beatrice, it was hard to guarantee that Beatrice would not hurt people. Therefore, Wuming suggested that Beatrice stay in Shuo Yu's house for the time being, waiting for Wuming's help to find Julian. Wuming already knew the real name of the Berserker class card used by Beatrice. It was Magin, the eldest son of Thor in Norse mythology, the god of strength in Norse mythology. The giant hammer Beatrice used when she used Dream Summon, install, was indeed Mjolnir, the weapon of Thor, the strongest god in Northern Europe. In Norse mythology, after Thor and Jormungandr died together, Thor's Mjolnir and Thor's divine title were inherited by Thor's eldest son, Mani, and second son, Modi. Through this point, Berserker Mani's card had all of Thor's divinity and the right to use Mjolnir. The reason why Beatrice did not die after being hit by Shiro Amiya was because of her inherent skill, Dusk Survivor. When she was judged to be dead, Thor's divine core would replace her, but at the same time, she lost the right to use Mjolnir and became the god of strength. If it was just Mani the Hercules, she had no special skills. Well. Okay then. Beatrice said weakly. What about you, Angelica, what is your choice? Wuming looked at Angelica and asked directly. I'm an abandoned puppet, and now my master is you. I won't go to Julian. Angelica said without hesitation. Hearing Angelica's words, Beatrice wanted to say something, but because of Wuming's presence, Beatrice didn't dare to speak. When did I become your master? Wuming said helplessly. From the moment you picked me up, you are my master. Angelica's eyes were emotionless. Seeing this, Wuming frowned. Displacement magic was really cruel. Wuming also investigated Angelica. She was originally the eldest daughter of this generation of the Ainsworth family, Julian Ainsworth's elder sister, Angelica Ainsworth. She died 6 years ago when the black mud caused the Winterwood City crater disaster and was resurrected by Julian, or Darius, with the displacement magic. The displacement magic had this drawback, that was, the person who was resurrected by the displacement magic would lose some things, such as memories and emotions. What Beatrice lost was her love for Julian, but with her own efforts, she fell in love with Julian again in the past 6 years. Angelica, on the other hand, had lost her feelings. A puppet without feelings was a complete prop. Angelica was such an existence. Angelica, who had lost her feelings, defined herself as a puppet. Therefore, even if she knew that Julian was her younger brother, Angelica still called Julian Lord Julian and not her younger brother because she had no feelings for him. Then you can stay and be a maid in the Shuoyu residence. Wuming did not know what to do with Angelica, who had no feelings for him. Human feelings were the most difficult to understand, and Wuming could do nothing about Angelica, who had lost the most difficult thing to understand. Wait until I find Julian and see if there is any way to restore Angelica. In fact, Wuming had another way to deal with Angelica, which was to give Angelica to Julian. However, this was not in line with Wuming's own principles. Wuming would not treat humans as objects. This was the choice of Wuming, who had turned from a human into a dragon. Humans were the most priceless treasures. Yes, Lord Wuming. With that, Angelica walked away. Needless to say, she must be carrying out her duties as a maid. Beatrice looked at Angelica, who walked away alone. Facing Wuming alone was enough to scare her. You should go back first. Remember to find a room for yourself. As soon as Wuming finished speaking, Beatrice ran away as fast as she could. Am I that scary? After temporarily solving the problem of Angelica and Beatrice, Wuming joined the kitchen and prepared the meal for the Shoayu residents with Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu. At the dining table, Wuming was still sitting at the head of the table. Little Black and Mayu sat on the left and right sides of Wuming respectively. Iria sat beside Mayu, and below them were Sakura Madu and Shiro Amiya. Below Little Black's row were Bazit, who looked calm, and Rin Enosaka and Luvia, who looked at Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu with sad eyes. Angelica, on the other hand, used her status as a maid to reject Wuming and the others' invitation. Beatrice, on the other hand, chose a room and hid in it alone. When Tong Ying went to call her, Beatrice said that she was not hungry and would not eat. However, in Wuming's opinion, Beatrice was mainly because of Wuming's presence. However, this was also good. After all, tonight's banquet was held to celebrate defeating Ainsworth. The two of them were prisoners of war, but they were invited to the banquet where they defeated him. It was a little strange. Speaking of which, where did Gil-kun go? Iria looked at the empty seat opposite Wuming and asked curiously. Don't worry about him. Children will know to go home when they are hungry. Wuming waved his hand casually. At that moment, the door opened. I'm starving. Looks like I'm not late. Dinner has just started. Gil's voice came. Chapter 309. Gil sat across Wuming and looked at the delicious food in front of him happily. Ever since Wuming started fighting with Darius, Wuming noticed that Gil was missing. Although he did not know why Gil only came back now, he decided to ask that question after dinner. The most important thing now was to have a happy dinner. Alright, since everyone is here, let the celebration officially begin. Wuming raised his glass and announced the start of the banquet. Everyone raised their glasses. Of course, Ilya, Mayu, and Xiaohei's glasses were filled with fruit juice. As for Rin Enosaka, Luvia, Shiro Amiya, and Sakura Madu, who were still underage, naturally, they drank fruit juice. As for young Gil, Wuming naturally prepared fruit juice for him since he had an underage face. However, that did not make young Gil unhappy. After all, young Gil's temper was the best that Wuming had ever seen. It seemed like only Bazette, who was already an adult, and Wuming, who was already an adult. He was definitely less than 100 years old. 50 would be too much, had wine in their glasses. By the way, the wine was provided by young Gil out of friendship. The wine that Bazette drank was diluted. If an ordinary person drank too much of the wine of God, they would die. Cheers! Everyone said in unison. Wuming finished the god's wine in the cup in one gulp and exhaled happily. This wine is still the best, Wuming said happily and poured himself another glass. It seems like Sensei hasn't drunk for a long time. You really liked this wine when you were in Uruk. Young Gil took a sip of his drink and took out a few bottles of the wine of God from the gate of Babylon and tossed them to Wuming. Wuming caught the god's wine and kept it in his precious artifact. Even I sometimes envy you, Gil. Wuming joked. Wuming was naturally referring to Gil's gate of Babylon. Young Gil had already retrieved his rank card. Although he didn't know why he didn't use it and kept it as it was, he had already taken back control of the gate of Babylon. That was why young Gil could give Wuming a few bottles of God's wine without a care. The reason why Wuming, who possessed the Manchala phalanx, said so was because the items that Wuming and Gil possessed were different. The last king was given the mission to kill all of the god slayers. Each time Rama killed all of the god slayers, the gods would give Rama many weapons. As time went by, almost all of the god relics were stored in the Manchala formation. However, these god relics were basically offensive. After all, one couldn't just give a warrior a bottle of wine and ask him to fight a battle. Therefore, the god relics that the gods gave Rama were mostly weapons. However, Gil's Gate of Babylon was different. The Gate of Babylon contained 2/3 of the treasures in the world. Although it was only 2/3, most of the treasures were in Gil's treasure vault. As for the definition of treasures, as long as Gil recognized something as valuable as a treasure, it would be collected by him. In other words, it wasn't just weapons. Countless non-weapon treasures were also collected by the Gate of Babylon. Although Wuming did not like drinking, it would be great if there was good wine. If it's master, you can still get it if you want to drink, can't you? Young Gil smiled. Wuming smiled too. Young Gil was right. The meaning of this was that Wuming could go to other worlds. Unknown worlds represented unknown treasures. Moreover, with the support of his origin, it could be said that to a certain extent, Wuming could indeed get whatever he wanted. That's great. I'd like to try the god's wine too. Xiao He looked at Wuming with a smile. No. Xiao He, you're not an adult yet. Even Sister Lin and the rest drink. You should just give me a drink. Ilya, who was sitting diagonally opposite Xiao He, looked at Xiao He angrily. Ilya was not angry because Xiao He wanted to drink. Instead, it was because Xiao He was sitting in the seat that Ilya wanted to sit in. It was natural for Meiyu to sit beside Wuming. On the other side, Xiao He tricked Ilya into sitting in the seat beside Wuming. That was why Ilya was so angry. Ma, what does it matter? Nothing will happen if you only drink a little. Xiao He naturally knew why Ilya was so angry. After hearing Ilya's retort, Xiao He hugged Wuming's arm and rubbed against it. Then, he looked at Ilya proudly. You let go of me. Ilya's face instantly turned red and she stuttered. Although she had experienced Xiao He's bold actions many times, the thin-skinned Ilya was still very embarrassed. Ilya, calm down. Meiyu comforted Ilya, whose face was red from anger and embarrassment. Cold sweat trickled down her forehead. Wuming lightly knocked Xiao He's head and said with a slightly stern tone, "All right, eat properly. Stop messing around. Woo-woo, big brother hit me. I'm so sad." Xiao He, who was knocked on the head, instantly made a heartbroken expression and looked pitifully at Wuming. Wuming helplessly shook his head. Then, Wuming used Xiao He's spoon to scoop up some food and brought it to Xiao He's mouth. "Come on," Wuming looked at Xiao He and said. Eh. Not only Ilya, but even Meiyo's face turned red. The two of them let out strange cries. Xiao He was also surprised. But, he instantly reacted. Xiao He let out an sound and swallowed the food that Wuming fed him in one gulp. The food that Big Brother fed me personally is really delicious. Xiao He even licked the corner of his mouth. Wuming shook his head and put down Xiao He's spoon. Wuming picked up Ilya's and Meiyo's spoons and made a feeding action for them. "Come on, everyone has a share." Wuming smiled. However, Ilya and Meiyu were a little shy. Slowly, Meiyu ate first. Meiyu gently ate the food that Wuming fed her. Her face was extremely red. "But, it's delicious," Meiyu said. "Ilya, if you're not going to eat it, I'll have to do it for you." Xiao He looked at Ilya, who did not eat for a long time, and made a threat. "Don't even think about it." Ilya instantly pouted. With an ah, she swallowed the food that Wuming fed her. Wuming put down their spoons and said to the three of them, "All right, eat properly." When Sakura Madu saw this scene, she felt that it was very novel. Then, she did the same thing to Shiro Amiya. "Come on, senpai." Sakura Madu looked at Shiro Amiya with blushing cheeks. It must be said that Sakura Madu was a very shy person. She was bold to do such a thing to Shiro Amiya in front of so many people. "Sakura. That." Shiro Amiya scratched his face in embarrassment. However, in the end, he still swallowed the food that Sakura Madu fed him. Rip, suddenly, the sound of cloth being torn was heard. Rin and Osaka and Luvia smiled elegantly. The tablecloth in front of them was torn in half. "You guys continue." Nothing happened. Rin and Osaka and Luvia continued to smile. Shiro Amiya felt that it was better for him to not ask any more questions. Meanwhile, Bazette, who was eating delicacies by himself, wiped his mouth. How boring. Then, he kept moving his knife and chopsticks as he quickly ate the food. There aren't many opportunities to eat for free. I must grab hold of them, he thought to himself. Laughter kept coming out of the Shuasuki residence. The moon seemed to be infected by the laughter. The moonlight was especially clear and bright as it illuminated the Shuasuki residence. Chapter 310. It was a beautiful day with no clouds for thousands of miles. The sun shone on the earth, covering everything on the earth with a layer of brilliance. Wuming held a small black box in his hand and sat under the sun with his eyes closed. Now, a week had passed since the last battle between Wuming and Darius. After the celebration banquet a week ago, Wuming went to find Julian the next day. Wuming found Julian easily. To Wuming's surprise, Julian rebuilt a house in the forest near Winterwood City. Although it was not as big as the previous Ainsworth Castle, it could be regarded as a small villa. Coincidentally, the forest where Julian built his villa was close to the Shuoyue mansion. After all, the original address of the Shuoyue mansion was the Weigong mansion, and the Weigong mansion was built on the land that Weigong Jishi bought on the edge of Fuyuki City. In this way, Wuming and Julian could be said to have become neighbors. Naturally, the fact that the two became neighbors could not be hidden from Shiro Amiya. After Shiro Amiya learned that Julian was fine and had escaped the fate of the Ainsworth family, he ran to Julian excitedly to catch up. Although Julian still hated Shiro Amiya very much, Julian still cherished this rare friendship. Shiro Amiya even stayed at Julian's house that night. This made Sakura Madu quite worried. After all, Julian and Shiro Amiya both lived together. Julian was a great enemy for Sakura Madu. Ahem, just kidding. After that, Wuming told Beatrice about Julian's situation and couldn't wait to find Julian. Julian also let Beatrice live with him for the time being with the guilty mentality of, after all, I used her. This made Beatrice happy for a long time. It was said that Beatrice had prepared more than a dozen night attack plans. Ahem, on the other hand, Julian was at a loss when it came to his elder sister, Angelica. Although Angelica had died a long time ago, and Julian also regarded Angelica as a puppet with his sister's skin during this time, Angelica was still his sister. This puppet had his sister's personality attached to it. Julian gave the strongest Gilgamesh card to Angelica. From this point, it could be seen that Julian still had a sibling relationship with Angelica. Since she has become your maid, let her stay in your house for now. That was what Julian meant. Just like that, Angelica became an official maid of the Shuoyu residence. And the black square box in Wuming's hand was Pandora's box. All along, Pandora's box had been hidden by Darius at the top of Ainsworth Castle. But even so, Erica was still connected to Pandora's box. Erica, on the other hand, created Pandora and Pandora's box because the gods wanted to bestow disaster upon humans. It could be said that Pandora's true form was Pandora's box. It could be understood that the Holy Grail produced a personality and body. She was Meiyu. Pandora's box produced a body and personality independent of the box, and that was Erica. Although she wasn't inseparable from the Holy Grail like Mayu, Erica was still connected to Pandora's box. This Pandora's box was given to Wuming by Julian when he met him again. This box is no longer empty. But even so, I think it should be of some use to you. At that time, after Julian finished speaking, Julian didn't wait for Wuming's reply and threw Pandora's box to Wuming. In the end, Julian added another sentence. This is also Erica's choice. She said that you bring her warmth and you need this. With that, Julian left. Wuming was left with a helpless expression. However, Wuming really needed Pandora's box. In the courtyard, Wuming collected his thoughts and ended his research on Pandora's box for the day. At that moment, Angelica, who had just arrived, walked up to Wuming and reported. Lord Wuming, the large hole at the edge of Winterwood City has been repaired. Angelica, who was wearing a maid's uniform, said. Thank you for your hard work, Angelica. Wuming comforted her. Angelica bowed slightly to return the greeting. After Winterwood City broke away from the Ainsworth family, or rather, Darius's control, Wuming successfully took over Winterwood City and became the manager of Winterwood City. Because of the parallel world, although this world had the Enosaka family, there was no Rin Enosaka. Winterwood City had always been managed by the Ainsworth family. Of course, this was the result of Wuming's deliberate indulgence. Now, the manager of Winterwood City was the Amiya family. After all, Amiya's identity as Wuming still had some influence in Winterwood City in this parallel world. Some of the staff of the clock tower and even the higher-ups of Winterwood City who had connections with Magician didn't pay much attention to the change of manager of Winterwood City. From the perspective of the clock tower, it was normal for a small city in the Far East to have a manager change. It was nothing more than a family defeating the original manager, and the original manager's family became a vassal. As long as the new manager was still nominally under the management of the clock tower, there was no problem. Of course, Zelik also played a role in this matter. For the higher-ups of Winterwood City who knew about Magician's world, it didn't matter who the manager was. It was just a change of partners. As for the repair of the large hole in Winterwood City, Wuming didn't let Julian undertake it. Within this week, Wuming contracted the repair of the large hole in Winterwood City. And the manager of this project was Angelica. Although Angelica didn't have Gilgamesh's class card, her use of replacement magic could be said to be superb. Even a first-rate magician couldn't withstand Angelica's tricks. Therefore, Wuming gave this task to Angelica. It had to be said that Angelica was indeed useful as a subordinate. This was because Angelica had been a genius before she died. After she was turned into a puppet, her advantages were revealed. She carried out the task seriously, didn't procrastinate, didn't cut corners, and was capable of doing things. In less than a week, she finished repairing the large hole in Winterwood City. For any lord, this was a valuable subordinate. It was no wonder that Julian and Darius kept using Angelica. Although Wuming didn't know why Darius wanted to abandon Angelica, he didn't need to know. Anyway, he was the one who benefited. By the way, Angelica, do you still have a free class card? Wuming suddenly had a thought. Chapter 311. Yes. As Angelica spoke, she took out a class card, but there was no image on it. Ainsworth had spent a lot of time experimenting in order to create class cards. These blank class cards were the failed products of his experiments. These failed products didn't have any heroic spirit power. After using the card, it would turn into ashes, and the user wouldn't gain any power. Thank you. Wuming received the class card and thanked her. You're too kind, Lord Wuming. Angelica bowed slightly. A maid isn't a servant. You're worthy of my thanks. After saying that, Wuming left without waiting for Angelica's response. Angelica stood on the spot and pondered for a moment. Then, she got up and bowed slightly in the direction Wuming left in the courtyard where Angelica was the only one left. Yes, Lord Wuming. In the Shuoyu residence, Ilya pulled Meiyu along as they sat in front of the television and watched magical girl dramas. How is it? How is it, Meiyu? This is good, isn't it? I didn't expect this world to also have magical girl Samurai Musashi. Ilya was excited. However, Little Black, who was watching the show out of boredom, had a look of disdain. Seriously, Ilya, you still like these magical girls? You've already become a real magical girl. What's wrong with that? Can't I like watching magical girl dramas just because I've become a magical girl? Ilya retorted with a red face. However, the effect of her rebuttal wasn't that great. Oh ho, as expected of Ilya. You can actually say such things. Little Black looked at Ilya as though it had seen something interesting. Ilya stared back at Little Black with a red face. Her puffed-up cheeks were incomparably adorable. However, the two of them didn't notice that Meiyu's expression was rather gloomy. It disregards the laws of physics and flies at high speed. It's impossible for humans to do this. Meiyu had a look of disbelief. Wuming walked over from behind the three of them and instantly placed his hand on Meiyu's head. Brother Wuming. Meiyu was shocked. She turned around and looked at the person. She only calmed down when she saw Wuming. I've already told you to watch more anime, but you just wouldn't. You just had to watch shows that weren't suitable for children. Wuming smiled dotingly. But don't get me wrong. Programs that are not suitable for children are programs that a large number of graduate students in medicine, biology, and even military science should watch. It was also because of this that Meiyu became the perfect superhuman that Ilya spoke of. She knew almost everything. Really? Brother Wuming, you're so annoying. Meiyu blushed as she felt the warmth of Wuming's palm. Big brother. Little Black and Ilya stopped glaring at each other when they saw Wuming. Ilya, Blackie. Wuming greeted the two. Brother Wuming, are you done with your work? It feels like you're very early today. Meiyu asked with concern. Ever since he obtained Pandora's box, Wuming would conduct research for a period of time every day. The research time was fixed every day. Hence, Wuming, who had completed his research early today, attracted Meiyu's attention. I have some ideas. Don't worry. Wuming patted Meiyu's little head again as he spoke. Speaking of which, where did Bazette go? Wuming asked. He had asked Bazette to look after the three Lolas until Wuming finished his research. But now, Bazette had disappeared. Because I wanted to eat ice cream, I asked Big Sister Bazette to buy it. Ilya smiled embarrassedly. Now that you mention it, I remember that it's still summer in Ilya's world. On the second day after the celebration banquet, Wuming sent Ilya and the others back to the parallel world. Along the way, Wuming also set up teleportation doors at the Shuoyu mansion and Amiya mansion. Those were the doors that could travel between the two parallel worlds. Rin and Osaka and Luvia had to report on their mission, so they returned to the British clock tower. Bazette stayed behind because he was still considered Wuming's subordinate. Hence, he did not return to Ilya's parallel world. It had to be said that this was a sad story. As for Ilya and Blackie, they came here because the weather there was too hot. Firstly, they were here to look for Meiyu. Secondly, they were here to relieve themselves from the heat. After all, because this world was once on the verge of extinction, the Earth's axis had shifted a lot. This caused Ilya's world to be in hot summer while Meiyu's world was in cold winter. But it seemed that the heavens were happy because Darius was defeated. It didn't snow much in the past few days, and the temperature wasn't that cold anymore. Instead, it was very refreshing. But no matter what, Ilya and Blackie had just come from the hot summer. In addition, Meiyu couldn't resist the double temptation of Ilya and Blackie, so Bazette was forced to leave to buy ice cream. Of course, Bazette left through the back door. Wuming was in the front yard. If Bazette left, he would definitely be discovered by Wuming. You three, Be careful not to get a stomachache. Wuming helplessly patted their heads one by one as a warning. He, Ilya and Blackie chuckled. Mayu blushed and lowered her head. Ah, big brother, have you completed your research? At that moment, Shiro Amiya's voice sounded. They looked toward the source of the voice. Shiro Amiya was wearing travel attire and carrying a large suitcase. He looked at everyone with a smile. Bro. Mr. Shiro, are you going to do something? Ilya asked in puzzlement. Blackie also had a curious look on his face. If it's wrong, he's going to England, Mayu explained. England? Ilya and Blackie were puzzled. It's like this. I'm going to England's clock tower to continue my magic cultivation, Shiro Amiya said with a smile. So sudden. Blackie was a little surprised. After all, they had defeated the final boss and could finally have a good rest. Shiro Amiya was going to cultivate again. I was the one who suggested Shiro go, Wuming said. Big brother suggested it. Ilya and Blackie looked at Wuming. Yes. After all, the manager of Winterwood City is now the Amiya family in name. If Shiro doesn't learn magic well, he won't be able to live up to the manager's name. After Wuming said that, Mayo's eyes dimmed. Moreover, I also gained a lot of things from the clock tower. It would be too heartless to leave them behind. Shiro Amiya touched the back of his head. Also, Sakura will go with Shiro. You don't have to worry. Ainsworth was defeated. Sakura could return home that she didn't dare to return before. Moreover, Sakura Madu went home to sell her property and go to England with Shiro Amiya. As for why she sold her property, she was going to change her name to Amiya Sakura in the future. She didn't leave a way out for herself. By the way, because Shiro was about to leave, Wuming wasn't in a hurry to exchange the Shuoyua mansion and Amiya mansion. The mansion in Mayo's world was still the Shuoyua mansion, and the mansion in Ilya's world was the Amiya mansion. I still have a plane to catch, so I won't chat for now. Goodbye, everyone. After saying goodbye to everyone, Shiro Amiya left the Shuoyua mansion. At this time, Wuming noticed that Mayo's face was a little gloomy. Chapter 312. When Wuming said this, Ilya and Little Black also noticed that Mayo's expression was a little abnormal. What's wrong, Mayu? Are you not feeling well? Ilya said worriedly. If you're not feeling well, you must tell us. Little Black also had a concerned expression. Brother Wuming, I originally thought that you let Brother Shiro go to the Time Tower to train himself. Mayu lowered her head, and her bangs blocked Mayo's eyes. Wuming instantly understood. He squatted down and hugged Mayu with both hands. You let Brother Shiro go to the Time Tower to train so that he can take on the important responsibility of Winterwood City's manager. Then, what about you? Mayu continued. Ilya and Little Black also thought of something and looked at Wuming. Are you going to leave me again, leave this home? Mayu raised her head and looked at Wuming. Her tears could not stop flowing. Yes, I'm going to leave this place. Wuming did not appear to be panicking. He said very calmly. Big brother. Ilya and Little Black were surprised. But, Wuming wiped Mayo's tears and said earnestly. This is something that I have to do. Mayu, forgive me. After saying that, Wuming hugged Mayu in his arms. Ilya and Little Black also fell silent. No matter what, Wuming was a root dragon, a legendary divine dragon. He must have his own mission. I know that this is a mission that Brother Wuming has to do, but... Mayo's dried tears flowed again. But... I can't bear to part with you, big brother. Mayo's last, big brother, was shouted in an extremely loud voice, and it almost penetrated the room. Wuming did not finish his words. Ilya and Little Black continued to maintain their silence. Only Mayu kept crying. Brother Wuming hugged me for the first time when we first met. Meiyu began to recall. My family is dead, and so is my mother. Although I don't remember them, that sadness still lingered in my heart. At that time, I didn't understand all of this. Wuming hugged Meiyu tightly. It's you, Brother Wuming, who saved me from this sadness. You gave me love, gave me a home, and gave me hope to survive. At that moment, Meiyu looked at the back of her hand. Although Brother Wuming was my servant at that time, I don't feel that Wuming was fulfilling the responsibility of a servant to his master. Then, Meiyu raised her head and looked at Wuming. I feel that Brother Wuming really treated me as a younger sister and took care of me with all his heart. My heart tells me that this feeling is incomparably real. Meiyu pressed her heart and continued to look at Wuming. That's why I chose to become a magical girl. I want to reduce Brother Wuming's burden. I hope that I can help you, and I hope that you don't have to work so hard. Meiyu threw herself into Wuming's arms and did not say anything else. Ilya and Little Black, on the other hand, sensibly did not say anything and waited. I'm sorry, Brother Wuming. I'm too stubborn. I've caused you trouble. Meiyu, who was lying in Wuming's arms, let out an unclear and weak voice. How could that be? Meiyu, you're my younger sister. No matter what, I won't feel that you've caused me trouble. Wuming was still smiling gently as he caressed Meiyu's cheek. It's been hard on you, Meiyu. You must have felt terrible when I left you last time, right? After all, the gentler a person was, the fiercer they would be when they were angry. This was because this anger had accumulated over a long period of time. Meiyu's outburst this time was the same. Making a young girl cry, I'm really a coward, Wuming said self-deprecatingly. No, Brother Wuming isn't a coward, Meiyu immediately retorted. She looked at Wuming with her little face puffed up. Wuming snickered. When Meiyu saw Wuming laughing, even Ilya and Little Black laughed. I'm sorry, Ilya, Meiyu. I've made the two of you worry, Meiyu recovered and said to the two of them. Sigh, really? Meiyu should have vented it out earlier. Little Black waved his hand helplessly. That's right, that's right. If you're unhappy, you should look for your friends and family to confide in. If it were me, I might have run to the park and coincidentally be discovered by my mother. Then, I would have jumped into my mother's arms and cried. Ilya smiled. Little Black looked at Ilya with a displeased expression. Little did she know that Little Black had been like this. Brother Wuming, thank you. Also, there's no need to apologize to your family. Meiyu pointed out the matter of Wuming apologizing to Meiyu just now. Ha ha ha, it's my fault. How does Meiyu want to punish me? Wuming rubbed his head and smiled generously. I want Brother Wuming to promise me that he will definitely be able to solve the problem safely and return to my side safely. As she said this, Meiyu extended her pinky. All right then. I hereby swear that I will definitely be able to solve the problem safely and return to my little sister Meiyu's side safely. As he said this, Wuming also extended his pinky and made a pinky promise with Meiyu. It's a promise. Yep, it's a promise. I also want to make a pinky promise. Ilya said sourly. This is a promise between brother and sister. Why are you joining in the fun? Little Black complained helplessly. I already called Big Brother, Big Brother. No matter what, we can be considered brother and sister. Ilya strongly refuted. According to what you said, I can also be considered as Big Brother's little sister. If Big Brother wants to make a pinky promise, then you can make a pinky promise with all of us. Little Black smiled mischievously. Yes, yes, Wuming bitterly smiled helplessly. However, Wuming still extended his pinky and made a pinky promise with Ilya and Little Black. I hereby swear that I will definitely be able to solve the problem safely and return to my little sister Ilya and Little Black's side safely. Wuming made another oath. Then, it's a promise, Big Brother. Ilya and Little Black said in unison. Ah! It's a promise. Everyone. Then, the four of them laughed. Amidst their laughter, the four of them did not notice that a faint golden light was emitted from their bodies. The golden light instantly disappeared as if it had never happened. Outside the door, Bazette stood there obediently. He did not choose to enter. Bazette was holding a few melted ice creams in his hand. Although the ice creams had already flowed to his hand, Bazette still did not move. Bazette had actually returned a long time ago. When he walked to the door, he heard Mayu call out, "Big brother." Originally, Bazette thought that an accident had occurred and wanted to rush in. However, a second before he was about to make a move, Bazette felt that something was amiss. Thus, he did not break the door open and rush in. For once, Bazette, whose intelligence was online, did not disturb the conversation between these four siblings. Instead, he stayed outside the door. It's a promise. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.